Hello folks and welcome to our game. Myself Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Michael Verney here. We're going to unpack a huge weekend of GA. But a reminder first, we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame to get 15% off. There is some selection of jerseys and zip-up tops, like Michael has the beautiful Limerick one there. I saw one or two people wearing that around Croke Park on Saturday. For example, this Tyrone one here. There's so many other ones, so go and have a look there. Look, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We're back with Limerick and Kilkenny in an All-Ireland final. What about it?
Yeah, mad years. So we'd all the same provincial winners in both codes, and now we have the same All-Ireland hurling final as well. Jesus, some amount to unpack, different incidents, different things, saves. What maybe potentially the greatest save of all time. Yesterday, second half probably was, there were times on Saturday I thought the first half an hour was exceptional, particularly from a Galway point of view. Then it kind of petered out. But yesterday gave us the kind of crescendo at the end that we were all looking for, like literally right until the very last puck of the game. And that's exactly what you want.
Yeah, do you know, a lot of people are using this, what happened at the weekend, as a stick to beat Munster with. You know, the whole narrative all year. That, and I saw this thing floating around, Munster hurling up at the top, but Limerick, they're the true yacht. But like, the thing that I'd say is, and Owen Cody obviously made a comment afterwards that, we are a good team, almost as if, maybe Kilkenny had been written off. But I don't think anyone had ever written off Kilkenny. They just said, yeah, Leinster is weaker, which obviously it is. But, nobody said that. Nobody was writing off Kilkenny. No more than, I see delusions of persecution here from POL 74. Limerick written off all year, but now back in the final, improving the whole time. Best they played in 2 years. I mean, who wrote off Limerick? And people said, yeah, they had injuries and stuff like that, and the games were closer, and all of that has been true. So who wrote you off?
Yeah, no, it's funny. If anything, Limerick were written up more this year than probably any other year, particularly after the league. I think it's a funny one. The Kilkenny one's a funny one. The Ballyhale lads said after the Ballygunner game that they were written off because Ballygunner were marginal favourites in a really, really tight game. It was probably 60-40. Clare were marginal favourites yesterday, like very, very marginal favourites. And if all it takes is to be the slightest of slight underdog to be written off, well then, most people are written off in most games. But in fairness to Owen Cody, listen, and Deja said on the show a couple of weeks ago, you use whatever motivation you can get, even if it's that smallest morsel to feel like you have to prove a point or that your team has to prove a point. You will use whatever you can get. Don't think it works long term per se, but it can work to get a result on a given day or create a cause maybe. When everyone said that it was Clare that were out for redemption, it was Clare that had the score to settle, and there was obviously there was a bit of a pebble in the Kilkenny shoe yesterday, and they fairly got it and very affected back into the Liffey.
Mikey K says, our game always talks about everyone apart from Kilkenny, and yet again they're in an All-Ireland final. We have Nicky Brennan on regularly. We had JJ Delaney a couple of weeks ago. We have Taggy Fogarty
on Larkin on Thursday.
On Larkin on Thursday. So what on earth are you talking about? David F says, I hope he'll have a section dedicated to Adam Hogan's use of the hurley again yesterday. That's every game this year he's guilty of it. It would be RTE's top story of Hegarty. Let's hear it now. Well, he did flake across Owen Cody and the referee dealt with it. Actually, we'll come back to some of those decisions a little bit later on, but keep the comments coming in. They're already flowing. So, it's a weekend of big decisions. So we'll come to it. What Brian Lohan did, his tactical calls, his positional calls. We'll go with what John Kiley and Paul Kinnerk and so on did with their team. A weekend of goalkeepers making a big impact at the Hill, whether it's Nicky Quaid and the old contact lens / the physio seemed to be adjusting his collar. Basically, there was nothing wrong with him. Let's call a spade a spade. And Nisha Waldron, another Kilkenny voice, was on the show last night unpacking it with me. He said he's worn contact lenses for 11 years or so playing hurling, and never once has he needed to adjust his contact lens. So this is absolute nonsense. But anyway, obviously him and Eoin Murphy both at the Hill made massive contributions. More diving in hurling. You can't help but talk about who is the best paw in the game. And then, of course, Brian Lohan and Henry Shefflin. Will they stay on for another season? So much happened, Mike.
Yeah, an outrageous amount of things happened. Just when you put it like that, we could be here till Tuesday or Wednesday, I'd say, talking about everything that happened over the weekend. We have the kind of maybe a final pairing that maybe, after the league final, I'd say Derek Lyng thought it was a long way to get back to get another crack at Limerick. But there's no comparison between the league final and what the All-Ireland final is going to be. The Hatton of Ballyhale Shamrock's player on the pitch in the league final. Limerick were flying. Limerick have probably dipped since Kilkenny have probably gone the other way, and have taken their trajectory is now upwards. And you probably say Limerick's after Saturday evening is probably upwards as well. We probably need to chat about Eoin Murphy though, because this is the sport. It's the sports centre moment, really. Dara Canavan's sending a fella for a hot dog at a club game earlier on this year that was shared all around the world, went completely viral. Nicky Quaid's flick in 2018 that gained a lot of traction the far side of the Atlantic Ocean.
James Carr's goal against Galway.
Yeah, and I'd say like this will as well, because anybody that is not familiar with hurling in particular will just look at this and see like the ball came like a cannon off Duggan's hurl. And you're looking at it in real time. I wouldn't have been able to say whether Murphy got a touch to it or not. And then you look at it slow back and just a lovely little touch to put it onto the crossbar. And then, in fairness, and probably won't be talked about much, Paddy Deegan pulls in the ball and gets it about 30 yards away from trouble. Because a lot of the time, particularly if you look at the Galway game on Saturday evening, the ball breaks and panic. And same in the Leinster final as well. And you could say, because he cleared it, maybe it wasn't panic, but at least he got the ball out of there. But Murphy's reflexes, we've talked about them probably for the guts of a decade now, but that was as clutch a moment as you would ever get. For context, there were 3 up in injury time. Duggan pulls on a ball, he couldn't have had time to react, and he saves it, and basically, probably potentially saves Kilkenny's place in this year's championship, and they rock on to the All-Ireland final now. And maybe, if they win the All-Ireland, much like Limerick in 18, we'll be talking about Nicky Quaid's flick, or we'll be talking about Eoin Murphy's save. And there's a fair chance that we will, because it's moments like that turn seasons, and that could not only did turn the game yesterday, it could well have turned Kilkenny's season as well.
And we'll be analysing it obviously a lot in the next couple of weeks, but what we're set up for is beautiful. Limerick looking for a 4 in a row, or Kilkenny looking for a 4 in a row of All-Ireland final losses.
And also, Limerick looking to join the great Kilkenny team of 06 to 09, a new Kilkenny team trying to stop them. Team. Yeah, well, I'm just making comparisons because the two of them are playing in the final. Derek Lyng obviously played 06 to 09. Now he's a chance to stop that Limerick team in their tracks. I think he's been, what's he going to be now? He's going to have been involved in All-Ireland finals as a player, selector, and now as a manager. And it's a dream kind of first season, really. They won the Leinster final in remarkable circumstances. They're in the All-Ireland final now after a remarkable finish. Call a spade, there won't be too many people tipping them to win. But if they deliver anything like they did in last year's final, then they're probably only going to be a ball or two away, I'd say, from winning it. And they're coming in now with Owen Cody, Owen Cody wasn't in our conversation for top 5 hurlers. Probably not an issue we would have had with Owen Cody. It's just that maybe a lack of consistency. Maybe really, burn it up one day, maybe not burn it up the next day. He had 1-5 in All-Ireland semi-final. To me, and I know he's been around a couple of years, that's a breakthrough performance. That's a fella taking a big game by the scruff of the neck. That's what I take Kilkenny people have been crying out for him to do for a while now. And if he delivers something similar and a few other lads chip in, they won't be far away.
He's won Young Hurler of the Year twice, I'm right in saying, aren't
I? Yeah, back to back, yeah.
It feels like he's been around a long time. Guess how old he is?
Is he even 23?
No, he's not.
22,
he's not 23 until September. This lad is going to be terrorising defences for another decade to come, because he's got the paw on him, he's got the finishes, he's got the little touches, he's got the ability to sort of switch hands if he wants to catch it on the outside of him on the right versus on the left. He's just a nightmare for any defender. I think the Clare full back line, if you take Conor Cleary did very well for a lad who was only just coming back, I have to say. I don't feel he came out and dominated how he would if he was fully fit. You remember in the first half when he batted a ball that was there for him to catch, really. And we better give Eibhear Quilligan some props too, because he started the season as a substitute and he ended up making that brilliant save from TJ Reid in the first half. So you have to give him credit also.
That was an outrageous save, particularly, and you'd probably say the only thing about Eoin Murphy's save, and it obviously looks better because it didn't hit the ground, because it's just straight in or whatever. But
crossed himself.
Yeah. Quilligan, when it hits the ground in front of you, and Sean Brennan said the other day, they're unbelievably difficult to save. Now, I'm glad you brought up Quilligan, right? So you have to say there's been some kind of mystifying decisions in Clare when you analyse the nuts and bolts of it. So if you go back to last year's All-Ireland semi-final, you know, probably Paddy Fitzpatrick, who had played very, very little that year, coming in for John Conlon, that was probably maybe a strange move. Quilligan not starting, we'll say, this year's Munster Championship, and maybe mistakes from Eamon Foodie maybe costing the game. Maybe Tipperary wouldn't have a championship win this year had Quilligan been in goal.
Jesus, hold on now. Don't be
there's
looking for ways to take a pop on me.
There's a distinct possibility that could be true. There's leaving Cian Nolan on Galan as long as they did in the Munster final. And then there's going with sweeper yesterday, which I just thought was very, very strange. And Brian Lohan talked about after that they were trying to contain Kilkenny. Like, and the thing I'd say about that is, like, are you telling me that Kilkenny are more dangerous than Limerick? So you've gone toe-to-toe with Limerick. You've not tried to contain them. You've gone man-on-man. And you've left a few open areas in defence, but you've gone for it, and you've really said, we're going to, you know, attack is the best form of defence. We're going to really, really take them on here. And you were left wide open a small bit, but they still could have won the game if they put the ball over the bar at the other end. But then they're playing Kilkenny, who, yes, Owen Cody is very dangerous. Yes, TJ is dangerous. And they play a sweeper who they hadn't really played all year. And I thought even Shane O'Morey being sweeper was interesting, because John Conlon surely would have been the one who's fallen back, and he's generally fallen back and playing that role in games. Maybe it was because of, you know, the knock that he picked up against Dublin that he didn't play that role. But when you put, like, that's probably 3 to 4 really big tactical moves that have not gone right for Clare, you'd have to say. And you'd have to wonder whether, and I'm not having a go at anyone, you know, involved in the backroom team, but you'd have to wonder whether there might be another voice needed there, or there might be another face needed there, or there might need a little bit, maybe more kind of guidance. Even like Aaron Chandler come on so late yesterday, Clare chasing the game, he gets 3 minutes. You know, a guy who can cause wreck in that type of scenario when Clare really had their dander up. Just thought there was a few really, really strange moves, probably yesterday, and even when you analyse it, maybe over the last 12 months.
Yeah, I have to say, the decision making on the line, it has been costly. And I was looking at the Shane O'Morey thing, and my read on it was they're going for pace, someone who can really cover the ground, and maybe even, like, remember Colm Galvin in 2018 when he was moved out to sweeper against Galway after 15 minutes. But he's a very different type of player to Shane O'Morey, he's just a very speedy, good hurler, very, very quick, and you can see him carrying the ball through the lines. You can imagine how that would work. And maybe they thought, we need to have, like, sort of a set of stabiliser wheels, because we're unsure if the spine of our defence in Conor Cleary and John Conlon, if the two boys are right. We also kind of maybe feel that if Mossy Keown starts, maybe he's not right, and Conlon can get through the game, making sure he spoils him in the air. Because, like, last year, Paul Flanagan was and he's an excellent defender, was criticised for having a few balls caught over him. So maybe they thought, okay, we can't start Flanagan there because of that concern. Whether it's true or not, maybe that's the way they were thinking. Obviously, Cian Nolan had a tough time in the Munster final. They weren't going to start him. Who were the other options? Darragh Lohan was started against Dublin and probably had a tough time against Danny Sutcliffe. And after that, there aren't that many options that I can see that they have on the bench. And even Aidan McCarthy has an option to play him wing back, which would have maybe allowed David McInerney to go in the full back line, for example. So I think they had a limited amount of options. But I agree with you. I think John Conlon should have been the spare man, or failing that, Paul Flanagan should have been the spare man. He made his debut, was it the 2020 championship against Laois, playing that role. In his first game, they gave him that role.
Brilliant on the ball, really, really comfortable on the ball too.
And also knows where to be. So that was the thing that probably didn't work so well for Morey. He wasn't standing in a position that was cutting out like a full avenue for Kilkenny to deliver the ball, allowing the markers behind to mark on the other side. So you should be nearly positioning yourself as a sweeper to cut out the ball on the one side so the marker has a yard on the other side. And that's something that Limerick do well, that Galway had been doing well coming up to this. And I just think that sort of let them down. And you have to play a player there in a massive game, somebody who's familiar with the role. And I think Brian Lohan got that wrong. And it's not the first thing he's got wrong.
Just on this point, the Detox 101 makes a good point, Shane. Sweeper may have been there to protect 2 injured central players. You know, my question there is, you know, if you're playing an All-Ireland semi-final and you're that worried about 2 central players, should they both be playing? If that's why you're playing the sweeper there. And just it looked like something that was totally unfamiliar to Clare even yesterday. And I was looking at the game and I was like, in the first half, I was thinking, like, Clare are never going to win this type of game. They're never going to. It was a real kind of an arm wrestler struggle. They're going to be. They weren't able to create a head of steam. They'd too many men behind the ball, not enough kind of runners. They were playing into Kilkenny's hands. They took the shackles off in the second half, and they really went at Kilkenny and looked the better team for the vast majority of the second half. But there's probably an energy deficit there when you're chasing the lead and you have to come back from 5 down or whatever. And they got hit with a bit of a sucker punch then when, in fairness to Billy Ryan, Eibhear Quilligan gave the sharp hook out to Rory Hayes. Rory Hayes gave it back to him. Quilligan passed out Billy Ryan, gave the ball back to Hayes, and Billy Ryan came back at him again and got the flick in. And that was real cutthroat from Kilkenny. It was like, that was the game-winning chance, really. That was the time to go for the throat. And I talked about the ball coming off Duggan's hurl like a cannon. It came off Cody's hurl like a cannon as well. That was, an unbelievable finish. I think it was Hogan was very unlucky. It was actually very like your brother Paddy on Richie Hogan in the 11 final. Like, he was there. It just, his hurl was right where the ball was. It was just a tiny bit too fast. But Cody was so clinical yesterday. I think he had 7 shots at goal, scored 1-5. Do you know what I mean? You can't. And one of them was a Hawkeye, I think, as well. And I've criticised him in the past for maybe missing chances, that are high percentage chances. He was clinical as anything yesterday. And, Owen Larkin talked on Thursday show about whether the captaincy was a burden on him. I think he's maybe placed more of an expectation on himself, and he delivered in spades yesterday.
I think it's a two-horse race for Hurler of the Year between him and Aaron Gillane at the moment. There's a couple of other, like a big final could change everything, but as things stand, those two lads are at the forefront. But
I just on that, because they're both inside forwards and they're both killers, they will both probably garner more headlines. But someone like Darragh O'Donovan, I'd say, would have to come into the conversation. If you had another big 8.5, 9 out of 10 final and Gillane was a bit quieter, which he might be because he's going to be marking Hugh Lawler, maybe O'Donovan will come more into the conversation there, but it's always more in vogue to go with the forward, even as much as I hate to say it.
Yeah, Adrian Mullen coming back and scoring 3 points after being out with injury, that was brilliant.
The flick, Shane, the flick for Pádraig Walsh's point at the end, beautiful as well, when they really needed it.
And Kilkenny's bench made a big impact. Cian Kenny came on, scored a point, set up another one. Pádraig Walsh got himself a point. Killian Buckley had a big catch at one stage. Wally Walsh did well, obviously dived for a free as well on the end line. He had his jersey caught for a split second, and somehow it meant that his arms went around David McInerney and he flopped backwards. But he's not the only one. Like Peter Casey, there was 3 fouls in a row at the start of the second half of the Galway game, and I think at least 2 of them, he went in, took a hit around here, a body hit, which is, seems to be, par for the course for all hurling. And then he grabs onto the man, flops backwards. Brilliant player. Absolutely love to have him in my team, but I think he induced the fouls there. And then even
induced. Good man.
Yeah.
Just on that as well, I think teams are going to have to cotton on to the fact that
refs are.
Yeah, well, refs are to an extent, but if you don't put your hands in there, there's going to be no chance of a foul. And there's times.
Yeah, but if you don't put your hands in there, the lads are going to just run past you.
No, but you can put your hands here, but you don't have to put them right in on top of them. Don't give the referee the opportunity at all.
What's happening is that you're putting your arm back and they're hitting you there. Like you can't avoid them hitting your arms. What are you going to do? Have them back like that and then just hit you? Like, what you're talking about isn't realistic.
You could also have your hands down. He's going nowhere. Let him take the steps.
They did have the arms down. It's just he goes low and gets lower still. No, and he's not the only one. Like, it's happening across the board. It's happening in Tipperary. It's happening everywhere. So
you're a real Limerick hater.
I am not. It's so funny, the amount of comments that people think that I hate Limerick.
No, Shane, it's parochialism. People do not want anything bad said about their county, regardless of whether it's 99.999% true or 100% true. They don't want to hear it.
Yeah, look, and I'm not picking on Limerick, but those are just the examples that really stood out for me. Just constant diving and hurling all the time. And the referees just need to sort of stamp it out a little bit. But what I wanted to say about Clare in the first half, they looked like a team off the boil. Number one, we've already talked about the sweeper. The other thing, do you remember there was a period of 4 sidelines in a row that they just hit straight to Kilkenny, and you're like, what is going on here? Diarmuid Ryan having 4 missed shots in the first half. Have we not been going on about this all year? Too many shots from the half backline from Clare. And shots where you're under pressure at the sideline and often from 90 yards. He's an excellent player, great talent, tries his heart out and all of that stuff. But it is like he had one day where it worked out for him against Cork, but too often he's doing this. And like last year, sure, how many shots did they have from 100 yards last year against Kilkenny as well? I mean, these are the margins. Limerick don't do this. Yeah. They shoot from 90 yards when Diarmaid Byrnes is able to wind up, plant the feet, and blast it over the bar. Plus, he's always scoring anyway. Whereas these lads are taking it, winding back, winding up on the sideline when they're at full pace under pressure. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Limerick shoot from distance when it's front foot shooting. Diarmaid Ryan got blocked down on the sideline yesterday. I think it was Paddy Deegan, but he's going for an over-the-shoulder effort in the first half. It's so low percentage. And when you have, we have to talk about O'Donnell's performance in defeat. Jesus, he's just an absolute thorn. And I was sitting beside Conor McKeown yesterday. We were just asking, how do you even try and tackle him? He's so many different ways of winning the ball. See, against Dublin, he won it with the hand back here. His hurl, I don't know.
He actually shared that on Instagram himself.
Did he?
The video of him catch the underside.
And he uses his hurl so well to block the ball down for himself or control it. And we talked about Murphy's save at the end. How good was O'Donnell's shot to beat him from where he beat him from? It was an absolute rocket of a shot as well. And he took on Tommy Walsh really well. And Killian Buckley was trying to get back, but it was kind of reminded me at the time Damien Hayes, was it poor old Hugh Maloney? I think he threw to the ground in the quarter final maybe years ago. O'Donnell just threw Tommy Walsh to the ground and blasted to net. And he was brilliant again. When things weren't going right for Clare, he was brilliant.
You wanted to talk about a tweet from Tom Clancy in terms of how Limerick, I suppose, killed off the game at the end.
Yeah, no, I did. It's actually just it's about Nicky Quaid's contact lens / collar / chest issue, because he was kind of looking at his chest as well. But Tom Clancy just made a tweet. I think it was interesting. So the Quaid stoppage timeline. So Galway pointed a free at 24:29. It was Quaid went down. It was restarted after a stoppage, 73 seconds there. So people are just saying that the game completely changed on Quaid going down. So the next 5 minutes, Galway won the next ball. Whelan hit wide. Seamus Flanagan was hooked. Galway had a free. Ronan Glennon fist pump. Barry Nash had a wide. That was Limerick's 7th wide. Limerick had a free. Diarmaid Byrnes over a point, and then Concannon had the goal chance with that brilliant Casey block from, and I don't know how much he knew about it, but he had an active hurl and had it there and gave himself a chance to block it. So in the 5 minutes after Quaid's issue, it didn't have that much of an impact, but they clearly reorganised things on the pitch. You were there. I was watching it at home, so I didn't see. But when Quaid was down, you've seen many people making their way onto the pitch, or physio, or is physio in? What's Kylie doing? What's Knorp doing? Because they clearly used that minute pretty well, even though the 5 minutes thereafter would suggest that it didn't have an instant impact, but they definitely reorganized pretty quick after.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't quite see. I was trying to figure out what's going on here with Quaid, so I didn't really pay too much attention on that. But I know that Henry Shefflin was getting very upset, and I wonder that kind of send, you want to stay composed. And I don't know if going nuts on the sideline, and I'm obviously using that term a little bit harshly there, but if kind of showing that much emotion on the sideline kind of sends a little bit of panic through your own team, rather than let's try and get our messages across as well. What was a better stop? Mike Casey from that Brian Concannon shot, or Conor Fogarty getting it done against Mark Rogers? Now, I think in Brian Concannon's case, he was under pressure and he was just lashing a shot. Whereas I think Mark Rogers has to go low. I think it's unforgivable to miss in that situation.
Yeah, Fogarty. I think Fogarty knew more about the block maybe than Mike Casey did. It was a brilliant block. Fogarty again, just trucking along there, just doing as he always does. Not spectacular, but just delivering a consistent display again. Casey's block on the line had massive ramifications, I'd say, for the rest of the game. Because Galway would have been 8 up. Potentially would have went in, maybe they would have pushed on or tried to push on until half time and would have went in with an advantage, maybe deserving of how they played in the first half. Instead, it was really, really strange. They pushed up really high on Limerick and didn't allow Limerick build from the back. And then you could actually see Henry shouting in and putting his finger up that he wanted one man inside, and everybody else started retreating back. And they allowed Limerick to build. But Darragh Donovan got on ball in the last 5 minutes of the first half that he was not getting on the ball before that. They were able to build. They were able to even get the ball to the 65 and deliver ball in. I just thought that Galway retreated back, tried to, hold what they had. But rather than going in 6 up, they went in 1 up. And you've been in the scenario, and I've been in the scenario when you've done all the hurling and you've dominated the team, particularly maybe as an underdog, and you go in 1 up. And they must have felt like they were losing at half time. And I'd say it sapped a hell of a lot of morale out of them. And, let's call it a spade a spade. It was a real no-show in the second half. Limerick totally bullied them, and it was a rudderless Galway performance in the second half. And just that 5 minutes before half time and the goal chance, just basically, I would say, nearly decided the whole game. Limerick got on top, and they dominated. I think it was 118 to 6 points. Thereafter,
from the 25th minute on,
yeah, that is an almighty hammering.
Yeah.
After I was looking at the first half an hour and thinking, Jesus, I tell you, this could be on here. Like the green machine could be taken down here. Everyone, like Brian Kincannon was man of the match after half an hour. Conor Whelan was getting on a load of ball. They were dominating everywhere. Everyone was on the front foot. And then I don't know why they seemed to pull back before half time. To me, that was the winning and losing of the game in that 5 minutes before half time.
I sometimes wonder, is that a little bit overstated, this suggestion that they just sat back? And I saw that Joe Canning, who, to be fair, he kind of backed Shefflin to stay on for another couple of years, but he was talking tactically. He felt that Galway got it wrong. But throughout the first half, I was looking up the field, and it was like 1 or 2 Galway lads inside the 45 of Limerick. And what they were trying to do was obviously win ball in their own half and then deliver it up and sort of stretch that space between the Limerick half back line and full back line. Because whoever the 2 that were playing inside, they were more or less on the end line. So obviously you're trying to make sure you're as far away from the sweeper when the ball's about to be delivered to you. And that happened for my money, Limerick were trying to sit back and sort of zonally hold to some degree and then let the half forwards and midfielders get tighter to men around the middle of the field. So I thought that it's not massively that Limerick changed. Like Limerick in the early stages of the match missed so many easy chances. Like I'm just going through it here. They missed 5 of their first 8 shots, right? And some of them were really bad. Like, fair enough, like Rod Hegarty missed, there was pressure from Ronan Glennon. But Seamus Flanagan had a miss. He went over his shoulder with Dahi Burke on him. There was good pressure there, to be fair. Tom Morrissey had one short. Keane Lynch had a very bad wide. Tom Morrissey had another one that was wide with Hawkeye. Diarmuid Burns had a free from 50 yards that was wide. I just thought that the scoreline was actually false. When I reflected on it afterwards, because we all get swept up on the sort of the hype of what's happening in the moment, and you're like, geez, it's on here because Cathal Mannion is flying. What a goal he had! Like, what a finish that was. And obviously Brian Kincannon, Conor Whelan, these lads are on form. But when you look back at it, everything that Galway hit early on, well, most of what, other than Evan Nyland's shot that was a bit short and Cathal Mannion having one that went wide poorly, everything that Galway were hitting was more or less sticking. So I thought it was a false position. And then once Galway kind of had that storm up until about the 25th minute, I think they just ran out of juice thereafter. I don't think it was that they didn't push up. They just probably didn't have the energy to chase anymore. And also when they had a 2v2...
That's a bit unforgivable though as well, like to not have the energy to chase anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like how can Clare go toe to toe with Limerick for 75 minutes, for 90-something minutes last year, and you know what I mean? I find it hard to believe. How can Waterford throw everything at Limerick in the 2021 All-Ireland semi-final and then be goosed after 20 minutes? Do you know what I mean? Like, are Limerick's conditioning levels that much superior that when teams go at them, that it takes that much out of them that they're gone for the rest of the game? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not totally disagreeing with you because it looked like that. Maybe it was a morale thing as well. But
that's the point, yeah. I think it is a morale thing. I think, like, the start of the second half, Limerick started getting scores. And as I've said already, some of these fouls were induced by going into contact, grabbing onto the tackler and just flopping on the ground. And I think Limerick got the rub of the green more often than they should have gotten there. I'm mixing up who were the 2 refs again? Was it James Owens? Was that
Galway,
one? And Colin Ryan's
James Owens was Saturday.
Yeah, it was James Owens.
Galway got some woeful soft ones in the first half as well. Brian Kincannon went looking for 2 or 3 frees and just stopped. and got a couple of frees. And I thought that was another reason why I thought it was on. I was like, this is very similar resemblance to Kilkenny in 2019, where they got a lead up and they got a brilliant start, and Limerick were never able to get back at them. And that's kind of where I thought it was looking. But for Galway to fall apart like they did thereafter is unforgivable, really. And you'd have to say, it places serious questions on them, and it probably places serious questions on Henry Shefflin and what Galway are going to do going forward as well.
You're breaking up a little bit for me there. I'm wondering, is it the same for everyone else, or is it just how it's coming through for me? Hopefully the viewers are hearing it perfectly. But the start of that second half, like just after Diarmaid Burns had put over a free to level it at 1:14 apiece, Daithí Burke had a wide after being set up by Ciaran Fahey. Then obviously there was that other free that was one that Aaron Gallan put over. That was a Hawkeye free. But then a little while later, actually, Tom Morrissey got a point. This made it 1:16 to 1:14. And Seamus Flanagan had surely taken 10 steps before the ball was popped off. So, I mean, a lot of things went against Galway. And then the goal went in. So that was obviously, I don't blame Pádraig Mannion, who obviously he has probably had sleepless nights after what happened in the Leinster final when he kicked away the ball and Cillian Buckley scored the winner. But I don't blame him for just trying to flick it away, because what else can you do? Let it drop and, potentially someone else gets it. And then at the other end, straight away, Daithí Burke hits a wide again. I think that just killed them psychologically, because you've such a gap to try and make up on Limerick in the first place. And when you can see the goal like that, and then you're hit a few wides, like 2 of the first 3 chances they had in the second half were wides. They had a couple of more killer wides. Evan Nyland has a wide from free that you don't expect. And I think that just kind of got them down a little bit. They were demoralized. They stayed going. Like, it's not like they gave up totally or anything like that. But I just think they were beaten from that point.
Yeah, kind of looked like it. I would say about Pádraig Mannion, I'd say potentially if he had it back again, he might have just waited a half second and probably maybe could have got his hand on the ball. But you're kind of in that situation. There kind of is a bit of panic, but you do need cool heads to prevail. And like, what are the chances of, Gallan hitting the ball off the crossbar, it bouncing out to the right-hand side, Mannion pulling on the ball, and it bounces straight back to the one person you do not want it to bounce back to. And, with a fairly emphatic finish, Gallan was brilliant for that first goal as well. Just kind of ghosted in behind. Like, Daithí Burke it's no mean feat to outfield him in the air. And it didn't look that obvious that he played his hurl, but he obviously does something at the very, very, very last second and does not make it look obvious at all. And like, Limerick really needed that goal. The longer the half was going on, it's like, geez, without this goal, Galway would be miles clear. But can I
give you an example of a player that is brilliant at playing the hurley without making the noise? So obviously, generally the refs, they hear the click of hurley off hurley and they blow the free for playing the hurley. That's it. Danny Sutcliffe, I marked him a load over the years. Very, very good at subtly playing the hurley, and it never makes a noise, and you're wondering what just happened there.
Yeah,
so that's very good.
That's a killer, because you hear a lot of lads, particularly in club hurling, you just hear it ash on ash, and lads know straight away. But in that scenario, like, I don't even know if Daithí knows his hurl has been played until the ball is in the back of the net. You're not even calling for it. Gallan definitely did his hopes of winning hurler of the year. Absolutely no harm. He's just clinical with the couple of chances that he got. And like, we have to talk about it as well. We talked about everybody playing centre back. Will O'Donoghue. It's gas, and that was a decision that was made early doors by the sounds of things. And it's like Kyle Hayes going back wing back. It should have been more obvious to us. It should have been way more obvious. He plays that deep lying role, covers for Hannon a lot of the time. He's played there for an Appear Streak. Now he was caught out of position and was under pressure, I'd say, for the first probably half an hour. When things settled in, I thought he was brilliant, and he got in a couple of his trademark flicks. But like, we had Dan Morrissey, Kyle Hayes, Gerard Hegarty, David Reid.
I wrote an article saying 6 options to play at 6, and I put him in. So
I'd say he was number 6.
But I just thought there's no way to play him there because they're taking too much out of midfield.
Yeah,
and they did take something out of midfield because his loss was felt.
Definitely early doors in particular, and Cian Lynch grew into the game, I'd say, and worked very, very hard, but he wasn't. Like, he's still not himself. And I'd say getting in the 75 plus minutes or whatever he got will be massive come 2 weeks' time, and you'd be expecting a bigger performance. But they were missing They were just missing Will O'Donoghue's robustness around the middle of the field. And even there was space in the middle of the field that would never be there in the opening, half an hour if he was there, because he's just legs and arms and he's great positioning, and he generally clogs up that area. But it'd be interesting to see now whether Hannon can get back for the final. Would you start him, having been out for the guts of 4 or 5 weeks, going into a final? If he's only like 60-70% fit, John Kiely generally doesn't do that. And
he's done it with Cian Lynch several times.
When he wasn't fully fit.
Well, he clearly wasn't fully fit in some of the matches earlier this year, and he still played him. Look, Cian Lynch is the best player in the country when he's fit. But come on, and he wasn't fully right yesterday or on Saturday either.
No, but I don't know if he's been. He hasn't. He seems to be unable to let the handbrake go on his hamstring and just go.
But you 100%. Don't know that. But he's not 100% physically fit.
That's what it looks like. Yeah, well, he's close to it. I would put it that way. He wouldn't be playing if he wasn't close to it. No, but he wouldn't be playing them. Like history would suggest, like he doesn't put in lads if they're not, near and full. They have a great bench. They're not going to leave. Be it David Reid or whoever it was before. They're not going to leave these lads on the bench to play a lad that's 60% fit. And I don't think they're going to throw Hannon in for the final if he's only 60-70%. And I think at least they'll be happy that they've found a solution that they can go to war with in the final if Hannon is not fit.
Yeah, I think that when they played Lynch earlier this year, he wasn't 100% right, and they were hoping that he would come. And then he wasn't even in the squad for the next match. So I have to say, I don't necessarily agree with you on that one. And there was a comment there saying that, to be fair to Shane, it must be very hard to hide the seeding of all, at all of Limerick's success as a tip man. Do you think it bothers me that, Verney, do you think that it angers me to see Limerick do it?
Yes.
Really? No.
Yes.
Because I actually have a few friends from Clare as well, and they're like, God, we hate G and Tip. And I'm like, we don't mind G. Like, we've so many enemies that, not everybody can be your most hated rival.
Well, Kilkenny are definitely your most hated rival outside of Munster anyway. And as you said before, you'd be happy enough for anybody to win outside of them. So you're probably shouting for Limerick in the All-Ireland final, actually, realistically.
Well, I can't make my mind up. If they could both lose, I'd be happy enough. But I'd probably accept Limerick winning out of the two.
I often said that before about Offaly County finals that Burr aren't involved in. If they just dropped a bomb on the stadium, we'd probably all be happy.
Adrian McGrath, Clare looked nervous in the first half. You need to consider that when assessing Lohan's decision to go with a sweeper. Well, Adrian, you were obviously the president of Brian Lohan's PR, but you have to admit he got it wrong again in this game. So he's the one who selected the players going out in the field, and he got it wrong. And you were very hot and heavy coming in with your comments at times. So come on now, step up and admit he got it wrong. You want to read out Raymond Gilburn's comment to Limerick, man?
Yeah. TK, Tony Kelly complained to ref after Mikey Butler fell over trying to hold Kelly. Ref brought ball forward 20 metres and TJ Reid scored the free. There was a couple of incidents in the Kilkenny-Clare game yesterday. So when Owen Cody was going down the end line, Adam Hogan pulled straight across and deserves the yellow card. The ball breaks out. Was it Tom Phelan goes through John Conlon?
Oh, buried him.
Now that's an interesting one because there's an advantage there. So you have to blow back for what the initial free was. And then I was kind of thinking, in that sort of scenario, is anything fair game once the advantage has been blown? Can you nearly get away with doing anything and it's still going to be a free? Can you be blown back? Genuinely, can you be blown back for a yellow card or whatever? But there's a happy Kilkenny man this morning, Aidan Taggy Fogarty. How are you?
Lads, how are you getting on? Good.
Did you have a few celebratory pints?
I didn't actually, no. I was caught in traffic too much getting out of Dublin, and by the time I got down, all I wanted was a bag of chips. So I got me chips. And I'm like a player now, just getting a bag of chips and going home.
Were all the Kilkenny WhatsApp groups hopping after that game yesterday?
No, they weren't actually. No, surprisingly enough. I'm kind of gone quiet. We're going to get a little bit older now, and lads have kids and babies and stuff. So they just watch the match and go home and do their own thing. So no, there wasn't much going on. I met Tommy after the game, all right. And he was delighted. He was high-fiving me there and everything. So he's delighted. That's it for Parry coming on and getting the score and everything. So look, it was a great win. Fairness, we're under pressure, but we're a great win.
Taggy, just on the support, like you were probably fairly outnumbered. It was probably 3-1 in there yesterday. Like, are you like you were used to the success 7 or 8 years ago. But I thought there'd be a massive crowd getting behind this team with the chance of an All-Ireland final and that.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. Like on the 50th minute, was it, when our 51st minute, when they went ahead, that roar went up, and I was like, God, we're 4-1 here easily. Like, and even looking across there, it was all clear jerseys. Kilkenny people, yeah, they go to matches, but I don't know whether we're a small county or not. I don't know, but the support, I don't know whether they're not going to Croke Park or they just feel we're going to get beaten. I don't know, but I even be worried about 2 weeks' time. I was at the All-Ireland last year, and Limerick were absolutely everywhere towards Kilkenny. I'd say it's 4-1 again, and that's for an Ireland final. So I was disappointed in the support in general, and you could see the Clare crowd were there in their draws, but they don't be up in Croke Park. Oh, that's not a dig at them. Like, it's just the way that Munster hurling. Like, they're not in Croke Park every year, so they get their day out and they go up. But from a Kilkenny point of view, I'd be hoping people will go to their Ireland now.
What did you make of Owen Cody's performance as an inside forward yourself to hit 1-5? Like, he's kind of fully fulfilling his potential at this stage.
He is, lads. He was unreal. Now he was getting good quality ball in, like not exceptional quality ball, but he was working for it. But the thing for me with Owen Cody, he was dispossessing guys. Even when Adam Hogan was out in front, or Rory Hayes when he was on him was out in front, he was still getting a little flick, still willing that kind of 50-50 ball, turning and putting lower the bar. And the scores he was getting, like, he was off his shoulder, he was out on his sideline. Even the goal he took, like, he had milliseconds to take that goal. John Conlon was just about to get the hook, and he just, the hand touch, bang, back of the net. He's in phenomenal form. He's obviously captain for Kilkenny, and I don't know what kind of a fella he is to speak, if he speaks in dressing rooms, or whatever the case may be, if he's a leader in that way. But he's definitely a leader on the pitch. He's definitely coming to age. He's probably in line for Hurler of the Year. Depends who wins the Ireland now. Gillan and himself are probably top runners for Hurler of the Year. But he's so strong. He's phenomenal. Good in the air, left and right, really good. And he's our outball. He really is. Kilkenny players, if you look at him, Richie Reid there when he was sweeping, looking up, who was he hitting into? He was hitting to Owen Cody. They were definitely targeting him. He's our top forward.
Doesn't it always just make some difference, Taggy, when if you're a Kilkenny back, I can put this to the clouds, and I've got like Tom Phelan's actually a very good hand. Martin Keown wasn't right, but he is a very good hand. John Donnelly generally does too. Billy Ryan caught great ball. TJ Reid, obviously, Owen Cody, Wally Walsh, you name it. Whereas the other end of the field, and this is part of the reason I couldn't understand Aaron Shanahan not coming in sooner. Like, at times you're looking for a long ball on top of Ian Galvin, Mark Rogers. Now Shane O'Donnell can catch the ball, but like, there's a lot of smaller players, and they're up against the likes of Hugh Lawler, who put it high on me all day. Like, there must be some relief when you can just have that release valve of driving the ball up the field.
There is. Look, there's 2 outballs for Kilkenny, basically. Like, and Kilkenny, like you're saying, are brilliant in the air, and we are very good in the air and have been very good over the years, and it's one of our best traits. And Kilkenny play to it. Even in my time, he said there was no tactics, but you're lumping a high ball on top of Henry Shefflin and Martin Comfrey. That's a tactic, because it's a high ball and they're 2-3 foot over the other player. But they're also very skillful on the ground. They can win it both ways, and they can win their own possession when it breaks. And I felt, even for that the Clare game yesterday, even for Tony Kelly doesn't seem to strike against Kilkenny. Obviously, he didn't man marked against Mikey Butler, doing a very good job. But Tony Kelly's man marked every day he goes out. So why doesn't it happen against Kilkenny? I feel that Kilkenny are actually better on the breaks. That breaking ball, that 50-50, we're better able to read it. And Tony makes the run, like he makes his dash and run to the left and right hand side. But there's Kilkenny man also making the run there, because he's reading it really well as well. So we can read the game really, really well as well. But you talk about the high ball, it's definitely a benefit. And, you talk about Clare yesterday, they were, I felt that, look, it's a game of 2 halves, lads, really. It was the sweeper system that really hampered Clare's chances of winning that game. I felt they were looking up Shane O'Donnell, and as you said, Shane, the outball of the high ball into the square with only one man there, that's no good at all. Richie Reid is sitting in front of him. So the whole play was kind of static, as in they were going lateral. They were getting out to a point, then they were looking up and passing on, so they're going lateral, and then Kilkenny was breaking around, turning over possession and putting them under the attack. And then when they went 15-15, the whole thing just opened up, and Clare just went for it, really.
Michael?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an echo there in the background of your microphone there, Aidan, a small bit. But we might just ask you. It could be you, Shane. Yeah. Owen Murphy, Taggy. Like, when the game was there to be won, or the game was there to be saved, like, my God, I'm sure you've seen plenty of things in Nolan Park and training and that, but to do it when the need was great. So it's unbelievable save. And as we said earlier on, like it's literally been shared worldwide like now, because people are just totally, they're looking at it and they're like, how in Jesus has this man done this?
Lads, it's one of the greatest moments I've ever seen in Croke Park, and it wasn't just because it was a Kilkenny moment. It was the greatest save I've seen in Croke Park. And as you said, Michael, the enormity and the context of the actual moment that was in. At Ireland semi-final, they were down by 3. To get that was going to draw them up. They were coming into injury time. A huge, huge moment. And then the whole strike, like Peter Duggan to even connect with that ball and connect so well with it, like that was huge. And straight away, you don't know where that ball is going. Like when anyone volumes on the ball, it can hit the ground, it can hit top corner, it can go absolutely anywhere. And to come through a sea of people then as well. So Owen wouldn't have had a whole lot of time to even see that ball. It came through a mass of bodies, and then there's athleticism just to kind of jump. And even he didn't just stop it and bat it out. If you look at it, he flicked his wrist slightly, just to lift that ball slightly up, hit the crossbar and out. It was just a phenomenal moment. And you were there, obviously, I met you last night, and the crowd didn't know whether it just came off the crossbar or it was a save. And then when it was on the big screen, you could just hear the whole crowd going, "Oh my God, he actually saved it." So like you could just put the All-Star in his back pocket straight away. Like it was just a moment. And the scenes, or look at the scene, what's coming in on Twitter and everything. It was a brilliant. And look, Murphy, sure, no, he's a gas man. He's a gentleman off the field. But and even during the game, the first half, made a really good save. I think was it off Shane O'Donnell he came in for?
Early in the second half, actually, I think.
Second half,
came up, really good save there. And even there was a point, was going over the bar, and he jumped off his feet and caught the ball. Didn't even bring out his hurl, just caught it really secure. And his distribution and his striking, lads, he has everything. He's a phenomenal goalie. And that save will go down in history. And it was, as you said, lads, was the context of it. If Clare got that, they probably could have pushed on and won the game. And you talk about big calls, and you talk about big calls in the game and different moments in the game. Conor Fogarty's block, like that just emphasizes what Kilkenny's all about. You talk about work rate, you talk about getting that hard ball. And I know there's blocks, and every team is doing it, and there's blocks and hooks. But that was a huge momentum swing as well. It was just that was like, well, we're not going to be bet here today. And you can see Eoin Murphy, we're now patting him on the back. Hugh Lawler went over. That's what it means to him, and that's what they're kind of working on. And you talk about tactics and matchups, and of course you're going to have that styles of play. But I think when at the end of the game, managers mostly talk about possessions won, hooks, blocks. Talk about Kylie's always talking about. That's what it comes down to, kind of, and the hunger, and that was the hunger that Conor had. And Conor's there years, and he's still doing it. Like I was delighted for him, a warrior.
And Taggy, they often talk about GA being more of a kind of a family thing. You see professional soccer and all that kind of stuff, and players are going to different teams and all this kind of stuff, and you wonder about loyalties. After the game, Eoin Murphy's there, and his mother is out on the pitch. I saw a headline in there was a picture of that on the back of the Star with the headline, "The mother of all saves," or whatever. But it's a family sort of thing as well, which kind of adds to it even more.
It is. Look, sure, it's the GA community. His mother's mad now, by the way. She'd be out now. She'd be having a few drinks at Limerick during the day. So, and a mad hurling family, a really nice family. Like, oh God, don't get me wrong. Just genuine, and the relation to the powers, like it's just in the breeding down there. They just love hurling, and that's what it's all about. And I seen the picture actually you're talking about. Yeah, I'd say he didn't get a hug like that even he was out last night. No, he wouldn't even got a hug like that. So I'd say he was delighted. But it's a family thing. Look, it's the GA. I was up early. It's the old cliche, the tea and the sandwiches. I thought them days are gone, lads, but them Clare boys brought it back yesterday to a whole new level. I think even coming down out of Croke Park yesterday, they were parked in the motorway having tea and sandwiches. I was like, lads, it's before the match. That's when you have them. But look, it was, and as you said, my own brother, I went up with him there, and his own kids are up there as well. And like, they're at an age where I don't even know whether they're actually enjoying the match, but they definitely enjoyed moments of the match, and they enjoyed the crowd, and they enjoyed the atmosphere. So it's brilliant. But it is a family thing, and I suppose as an inter-county player, you get a bit of criticism. Like all they want you to do is just play well, and nothing kind of go wrong for you, because like big call, like I'm saying, like lads didn't turn up, lads didn't play well. I've been there, lads, and like all your family want to do is look, I hope it goes well for you, and that's all they ever say to you. They don't want you to have a man in the match performance. They just don't want you to kind of be maybe taken off or get a bad injury or do something kind of bad and lose a game for someone, because as an individual and a person, you see social media, lads, it's so bad that it can have a real bad effect on lads. So like your family are there they just want you to do okay, and the result, they want you to win, but like it's just all about your own son and your own daughter, albeit with the Camogie and stuff. And they're just looking out for you. And you have lads in the stand maybe saying, he's used to take him off. I've been there. Philip, your own brother, my father and stuff. And so what do you do? Lads don't realise the bigger thing, I suppose, the bigger picture about family.
Oh, it's very stressful to watch on. If you have a family member playing in some of these big games, the stress, when you see a high 50-50 ball going in, you're like this, oh, Jesus. You're just hoping that they get through it. Like, Taggy, we were talking about the first half and Clare, and, you've already commented on the sweeper that not really going for the game. And maybe we kind of said, maybe they put him in there because they weren't sure about Conlon, they weren't sure about Cleary, also what happened with the high ball last year. So obviously they didn't do it for no reason, but it was like the sideline cuts that Clare hit straight to Kilkenny. There was 4 of them. It was like the shooting from under the stand, 90 yards out under pressure. It was even like the scores that they gifted to Kilkenny early in the game. I just thought there was a few times they just gifted the ball to you, like hitting the ball straight to Richie Reid, then straight away Kilkenny would just pop it over the bar. Like, do you think that there's a problem with Clare on the big days? Last year they didn't deliver. They've lost tight games against Limerick in Munster finals. Maybe it's been a little bit harsh, but like they've only won 6 Munster finals out of 30 final appearances. Is there a problem on the big day with Clare?
Look, I suppose before the match was done, I've done a few things, and I spoke about exactly what you said. I spoke about kind of the big day, the intensity of Croke Park. I do think Croke Park is a factor with this Clare team and Clare in general. They haven't done well since probably 2013. They won the All-Ireland, obviously, but since then, they haven't showed up.
Haven't won a game there since. Haven't won a game there since. Drew in 18, hammered last year and beaten yesterday.
Yeah, there you go. So straight away it's Croke Park factor. And you're right, it's the smallest margin. You look at Kilkenny yesterday, and I go back to your point, they were so clinical in what they were doing. Like even free take, like Mark Rogers missed an easy free in the first 10 minutes. And that was like, God, is this going to be the same Clare? And you could see the crowd even kind of feeding off and going, oh God, that was an easy free. And it was an easy free. And then you see TJ just immaculate from all over the field, potting them. So like straight away, that was it. Giving away possession kind of easily, kind of aimlessly. You talk about the smallest margins, and I suppose you look at the Kilkenny game or the Galway game on Saturday night, not to go away from it. The goal, even the hand pass from TJ Reid was just so kind of clinical, straight to Owen Cody, bang back to the net. Right. If you look at Conor Whelan's pass on Saturday night, it looped up into the air, about 3 seconds to come back down, allowed Limerick to filter back, allowed Casey to get back on the line, put the hurl down, and it was lucky block. But still, that 3 seconds, lads, that's what it takes in big terms hurling. And even when the rebound from Eoin Murphy save, like why not go for goal there? They needed a goal. Why not just go for it there? Remember Tommy Welch against Tipperary, against Cummins. Cummins made 2 or 3 saves off Martin Fogarty or Martin Comerford. I think Eddie Brennan got a shot, and Tommy still went for it. So big games, you have to perform. And I just thought Clare gave away too many small mistakes, like missing frees, and the old the shooting. They haven't fixed that problem. They drove 23, 24 wides in the same fixture last year, albeit only 9 yesterday. So they did get to another level. But that Munster final drove an awful lot of wides. Poor shot selection, and that's when the pressure is on, lads. That's when Kilkenny lads are in your faces and are making you kind of make decisions really, really quick. And they're not able to do it, and they made the bad choices. So it's the smallest of margins. It's composure on the ball. It's experience. It's a nervous energy. When you're winning, I suppose all the time. I suppose if you look at Limerick because they are winning. Look, they have a little more composure. They're a little more belief. And when you're kind of coming from a team, maybe they haven't won anything in a long, long time. There's a nervous energy there, and that can make you do stupid things.
Just on that, you had that composure as well, Aidan. I don't know, winning brings that kind of composure. But when you haven't got over the line, there's an element of panic. Limerick don't panic generally now. They maybe, even Pádraig Mannion's pull after Galan hitting the crossbar, probably a little bit of panic. Whereas, I don't know, does experience bring that composure, or does, consistently winning bring that composure?
It does, yeah. No, I look, I was going to say culture kind of brings that composure as well. But definitely winning big matches and winning consistently brings that composure. And I think getting over the line in big games where you're put to the pin of your collar and you come over the line and you do it in a couple of games, like 1 or 2 games, you're like, my God, they got over the line. And even the crowd at Kilkenny just kind of knew that Kilkenny were going to turn up yesterday. Like lads are saying, God, will they beat Clare? I was thinking like Clare are an unknown entity. I know they came through Munster and we knew everything about them, but in Croke Park, Clare are an unknown entity. You just don't know whether they're going to kind of play or not play. Kilkenny, like, they're a very reliable team up in Croke Park, but it comes down to experience. It comes down to the character of a player. It comes down to kind of a cultural thing, and that takes time, lads.
Just a word on TJ Taggy. Like, he shouldn't really be doing what he's doing. Like, he's 36 in November. Like, even yesterday, I thought was nearly the old TJ, from the sense of, like, he was back in his 21 and back in his 45 and doing all the foraging and all that kind of crack. Like, it's amazing, really, that he's, some days he doesn't score from play, but he still has as big of an impact on the game. And as you say, even that kind of killer hand pass, the line ball as well, when it was really needed. Like, I don't think he's really taken on line balls in recent years. He obviously is taking them on now again under Derek, but just it's phenomenal, really, what he's doing and still doing.
Lads, the performance CJ put in yesterday, it was exceptional. As you said, he was on the 14-yard line, clearing ball. He was catching ball out of the sky. He was bringing players into the game. He was getting his hooks. He was getting his blocks. He was up and down the field. He was immaculate on free taking. And then he put over a sideline ball just for the crack to make us 2 points up. And he's just trotting around the place. He's just kind of like doing his own thing. Even before the match started, he didn't even go around and pray. He went into the toilet in Croke Park there and trotted out then all the match is on. It's actually amazing what the man is doing, a phenomenal hurler. As you said, he shouldn't be doing what he's doing. Lads are saying, God, will he retire? Will he not? I hope he doesn't retire. Why would you retire when you're doing that still and being on the team? Like, it's absolutely amazing. Now, we need him, but we need every bit of him. But he shouldn't be doing what he's doing. If anything, players like come to that age, they might be scoring maybe 1 or 2 points, and to be like, the whole pressure's gone off him. But TJ still, he's bringing that pressure nearly on him because of what he's doing. It was phenomenal. I don't think he scored from play yesterday, but it didn't matter. They talk about one of the best performances Henry Shefflin ever did. I think it was the drawing game against Galway in 2012. He didn't score, but he just dragged Kilkenny back into it. That's what TJ Reid, I won't say he dragged him into it, but he was just doing it all over the place. Done it for 70 minutes, lads. It was crazy. It was just crazy what he was doing. Brilliant.
Just lastly on TJ, would he do a Messi and call it a day if Kilkenny won the All-Ireland?
God, it's a hard call, lads. TJ loves hurling. It's bred into him. He's from a club there, Ballyhale. It's just in their DNA. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see him retiring because I don't know what you said. Go out on top. No, he loves the game too much. He's playing too well. He's too much of an influence in the Kilkenny team still. I couldn't see it. And it comes down, like, I remember TJ coming in, he was like a schoolboy coming in. He'd be shouting at himself, putting balls over the bar and trying. Do you know when you're a young lad out the back and you're like, DJ, you're letting on to be DJ Kerr, and you put over the bar and you cheer yourself, go on. He was doing that in inter-county training. This is the madness of him.
What would he been saying? Like, TJ Reid on the ball, or this kind of crack?
He'd be commenting, TJ Reid over the bar, and he'd fist pump, and this is in the sideline before training starts. Like, the man loves the game, and I'm saying this in a good way, a positive way. Like, he just loves it. And at the same time, he was training, he was knocking balls over the bar, but he wouldn't be knocking them over on the sixth. He'd be going into the corner flag on the furthest little notch away on the field, and he'd be curving the ball over the bar, not just striking it over the bar. He'd be putting a spin on it, and he was challenging himself. But he was training at the same time. But that's the kid. Like, that's how much he loves the game. And look, he's just playing too well to retire for me. No way.
And another couple of weeks, how much better will Adrian Mullen be? And for a lad who hadn't hurled in a long time, and I think anyone who's broken their thumb, and obviously I'm not even sure which thumb it was, but like your hand very much seizes up when it's kind of locked into one position for a number of weeks. So for him to be able to be that dexterous, or whatever you want to say, when he's just come back, Taggy, that's no mean achievement.
No, it's not. Now, the only thing is, breaking your thumb means you can do all the running. You can have your fitness up, which is a massive part of getting back onto a team. Adrian Mullen's skill level was always very good. I obviously I've never heard of him, so I don't know whether he needs to kind of come back and work on his touch, but by all accounts, he just has the natural ability. But he's going to be a way better hurler. He trained for the last week, but for training for last week, you're only poking around anyway. So that game is going to bring him on hugely. And he had a bigger influence on the game as well. And he's a big cog to that Kilkenny team. He really is. And you talk about him coming back, and you talk about Kilkenny as a whole. I think Derek has done a really good job in gelling that whole team together. The bench that he's after creating, they look really kind of, I don't know, rejuvenated really in ways. Killian Buckley kind of didn't play for a long time in terms of big games. Yeah, he was coming on, getting pieces here and there. He seems to be really rejuvenated. Walter Welch the last day came off the bench, 1-3. Richie Hogan even yesterday, obviously he looked like he caught for a little bit of pace, but still cute enough to win a free. Cian Kenny came on, got a point, and they seem to be just kind of really, I won't say happy to come off the bench. Nobody's happy to come off the bench, but kind of, I'm going to do a job here. I'm going to do a job for this team because we're gelled together. And then he's kind of thrown in a Blanchfield wing back, really have to come to the fore, albeit he was there last couple of years, but he gave him his chance. Tom Phelan's at the slotting in there, wing forward, probably for his pace and kind of aerial ability. Billy Drennan got injured, unlucky during the year. He has him on the panel, Timmy Clifford. So I think he has a really good place, lads. All in all, as a whole, that Kilkenny team is gelled well, and I think the Leinster final brought him on massively in terms of spirit. Obviously, I haven't seen Kilkenny kind of celebrate a final like that in a long, long time, and even management even. Now I know this was the manner and the way they won it last buck of the game, but they're out obviously Sunday night, Monday. They had a little break. They would have gelled together. Really, really good spirit in that camp, I think.
Taggy, if Kilkenny do win this All-Ireland, considering how muted it was in 2015, because, obviously you'd won so many at that stage, there was barely, it felt like it was, there wasn't too much celebrating. It'd be the last days of Rome down in around Langtons and the left bank and all of that if you do win this one.
Stop, lads, to be epic. As I said, we haven't won one in a while. And just to wet the fingers, I suppose, or whatever. Like, they're going for 4 in a row. The last team to do it was Kilkenny. And who's in the final now to stop them doing the 4 in a row if they can? Only Kilkenny. So there you go. There's a bit of appetite straight away. Now, I know the Kilkenny team won't be using it and management won't be saying it, but look, it's in the back of the heads. I remember playing Cork all those years ago. They're going for 3 in a row. It wasn't really been said, but we didn't want them doing it, lads. And that sport. You want to keep these titles. I think it was Gary Neville. He was interviewed about Man City, about the treble. And he was like, look, lads, I'm not really that happy. Quality team, but I don't know. I wanted that title for myself, So, look, it'll be absolutely brilliant. Now, if Limerick win it, it'll probably be one of the greatest All-Irelands ever to be won. Like, to come out of that Munster campaign, to be under pressure in terms of kind of injuries. The media kind of even were against them at times. Are they the Limerick of old, or have they lost their aura a small bit? And if they win it, and the teams that they're after beating along the way, it'll be one of the best of Ireland's ever. But Kilkenny, being Kilkenny, they're after sneaking up out of nowhere. I suppose it's probably the Leinster thing. It's all about Munster for the first couple of weeks, and then you have Kilkennys and Galways, which can compete with any Munster team, in my opinion. And look, they're after sneaking into an All-Ireland final again, and could probably maybe even in a better position than they were last year in winning this game, in terms of kind of bench-wise, in terms of their style of play. You'd be hoping, and probably showed yesterday, that they won't panic and just lump ball down on top of a serious full back line in Limerick, that they're able to play it through the lines a little bit better. And when I say play it through the lines, in big matches, when the pressure is on, not in league games when they're 10 points up, when the pressure is on, have that little bit of composure of doing the 50-50 thing and keeping the heads. And they seem to be, just by yesterday's performance, they seem to be that little bit better than last year.
Derek made that point, Taggy, that Kilkenny were brave yesterday when the game was going against them and it looked like momentum was going against them, that they stayed doing what he wanted them to do. Obviously, that they didn't throw out the playbook or whatever. And that's kind of, yourself from it on the pitch, the easiest thing to do when things are going wrong is just, lorry it in or do the exact opposite of what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, no, the easy thing to do is the panic, and that's probably when you're under pressure, and sometimes it's just to get rid of the ball because you don't want to be caught in possession. But I suppose, look, there's two sides of it, lads. If you look at the goal yesterday and the goal that was given away by Clare, Eva Quinlan tried to run it out, give it to Rory Hayes, caught in possession and a goal. If he'd have lumped that ball long, that goal probably wouldn't have happened. But then he'd be saying, why are they hitting the ball down long to that serious full back line of Kilkenny? So fine lines, fine margins, but I do think Kilkenny are playing the system a little bit better. They're more confident, is probably the word I'm looking for, in playing that system in the bigger games. And against Limerick, you're going to have to mix it both ways. And we can mix it both ways now, I think. We all know our strengths of work rate, hooking and blocking, the aerial battle. But now I think we do kind of have that little composure in terms of, and even the freedom in the team. The likes of Mikey Butler going up to a full forward line and taking a shot on goal. Blanchfield is edging kind of up the field. So I think he's given them a little bit of freedom to move up and down the field, albeit keep your shape, but, have that freedom to roam around and pop up in certain positions. And even Mikey Butler, say, for instance, yesterday, man marking Tony Kennelly. And next thing, Mikey Butler is tearing down on the Clare goal and Tony Kennelly is chasing them. That was just a great looking from a sports point of view, that we're still taking the challenge to, and Mikey Butler was taking the challenge to Tony Kelly. Chase me. I know I'm marking you, but chase me down, you know?
Yeah, there's a good question here from 36 and counting, which might be one of your fellow county men, I'd say. He said, ask Taggy how much would his KK team beat this Limerick team by? A lovely little question to throw at you.
Lads, look, I don't know, I'm on 2 scoreboards there. It'll be definitely 10 or 11 points in it towards the end. Sure, Sean Finch, I 1-3 off Sean Finn, would be no problem. You heard it here first. If he was fit. I know, well, I'd say to be a serious, like even on matchups, lads, like to be a serious home. Could you imagine Tommy Welch chomping at the bit, going out to mark Tom Morrissey? There'd be no control in the man.
I can imagine him pulling that ponytail, actually.
Yeah.
Detox 101 says, if Limerick win it this year and next year, will Taggy wear a t-shirt saying, I was a member of the second best team of all time?
Well, I tell you, if there's a couple of pints in it, maybe you would know, sure. Like, I'm always up for a little bit of crack, you know, a little bit of banter. So he's not even talking about 4 in a row. He's talking about 5 in a row, is he?
Yeah. He is.
Lads, they've lost it straight away, lads.
Hey, a brief aside there, I mean, a comment in, but I only was made aware of it yesterday. At the moment, Killian Buckley's wedding is slated for the day before the All-Ireland final.
Oh, lads, it's dead right. Tommy Welch after the game, first thing he said to me, Killian Buckley. That's what he said. Just said Killian Buckley. He didn't say anything else. And I said, I know. And he goes, it's a disaster, lads. You know, God, the wife, what's she thinking, you know? And Killian Buckley being who he is, you know, I'd be surprised if he turns up himself, to be honest, lads, you know. That's
at the wedding or the match?
At the wedding. He'd be definitely at the match. But that's the type of fella he is. He takes it so serious. He loves it. And you know, he'd be thinking this is an awful thing for himself in his own mentality. You know, that's just the type. And I'm not like, this is a good thing, obviously, but he just loves it. And look, he'd be inviting lads to the wedding. Will they go? Will they eat the dinner with the gravy? You know, the mashed potatoes before the game. Is that the diet that Noreen Roach wants them had them on the day before? And Ireland, the biggest day of their lives. You know, so there's a lot of things to think about. And even it's like, how do teams prepare? How do players prepare for matches? I know I didn't want to be meeting anybody the day before because lads would be asking me questions. And you know, it can be draining talking about a match sometimes, and sometimes it can be drained. And it's happened. You talk about the game, the build up so much that nearly you land on the field and you're like, it's the energy just gone out yet. You know, you can nearly have the game lost before it even starts. So, like, every individual is different. Lads are going to be talking about the match started beforehand. And is that good for players? I don't know. So, I don't know whether they can call it off or put it off till Sunday night or something. I don't know, lads. But, it's a tricky one. I don't know how they're going to work it.
Hey, look, I'm getting slated here. John McAuliffe says, listen to most of the podcast, Shane, but you really do hate Limerick. Constantly focus on a way to criticise us. Poor punditry. # Peter Casey and Nicky Quaid. Jeez, I'm getting off. I actually have no problem with Limerick at all. Like, they're the new money, whereas, you know, Cork and Kilkenny are the old money. I save my hatred for ye, Taggy, but, you know, obviously all in a good way. It's all good rivalry.
Look, we know there's a hatred between Kilkenny and Tip, but that's okay. We're okay with
it. We'd be sickened to see you win. I want Limerick to win this game.
Yeah, I met Shane McGrath before the match yesterday. You know, we're just talking about kind of old times and stuff, and he was like, he said it was exactly what he said. You go, no, it's great to be involved in all them Ireland's and semi-finals and stuff, you know. And he came straight out. Look, we know we hate you, like, but like off the field we kind of go on. And we're like, yeah, no, 100%. And likewise, we hate you, but it's a good, friendly, healthy kind of a relationship, you know.
It's a healthy hatred. That's what it is.
It's a healthy hatred, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I suppose it's like Clare, even the game yesterday and the build-up, we're not a neighbouring county to Clare, so straight away there's an atmosphere kind of gone. That takes away from the game, you know. When you're not a rivalry, when you're not a bordering county, you know, there's no kind of like down South Kilkenny you have Waterford, North Kilkenny you have Tip, and then you know, you have kind of Cork, I suppose, near enough to the west side. So it always helps when you're a neighbouring county.
Did you have this? What was your feeling for Cork like? And like, obviously they haven't won for a number of years, but was that more of a, well, we don't hate you but love you, but we hate you but we hate you?
Are you talking about my hatred of Cork, or are you talking about how they went this year?
But in general, like, how do you feel about Cork? Is it the same way as you do about Tip, or is there a bit more of poison in there?
No, I'd say I won't say my hatred, but I suppose we're not neighbouring that much. See, I'm living right in the border, lads, and we're farmers, and half our land, the boggy bit
You
of our
went to
land.
school in Tip, didn't you?
I did. I went to school in CBS and Thurles, yeah. But the land, half our land is in Tip. The boggy part, I say, is in Tipperary. The old
barren land.
The old barren land. But wouldn't build a house on that land now, I tell you. So look, I would have seen it. And my own uncle, Pat Dillon there, he would have hurled against Tipperary, that great Tipperary team. And down to the years, I've been in his house and he was talking, and he had a hatred of Tip now, but he played a Tipperary team with the cauldron of them backs. I can't even mention their name. Hell's Kitchen, that's who it was. And by God, they went through some battle. So I suppose that's where I pick up a little bit more hatred for Tip. But I have obviously great respect for God Almighty. And as I said, like, geez, we're best of buddies off the field, but on the field. But Cork, I went to college in Cork. Went to college with Gardner, all them guys. Great respect for them as well. But as I said, lads, when it comes down to hurling and trying to get over and win matches, everything goes out the window, and you do everything you can to win match.
Michael?
That's a fact, yeah. Just I let you go on this one, Ed, but just looking at the All-Ireland final, like, do you see Kilkenny adopting a similar approach to last year? They kind of went all out last year, which meant it was a real high-scoring game, but they weren't able to contain Limerick. Do you think they'll have learned much from that? How do you see it going? Limerick are obviously heavy enough favourites going into the final.
Yeah, look, Limerick will be absolute favourites going to the final. God, I thought you give me 24 hours to enjoy the Clare one anyway, lads.
I came in the other day after playing Senior B with Burr. We won it.
Scored 2 points.
Yeah, I missed about 2-5. But the Senior A manager came in straight away and said, lads, we're parking this now. We're back training Monday night. And I was like, geez, I want to enjoy this for a couple of days, boys.
Yeah, exactly. I want to enjoy this moment for at least 24 hours. But look, they're a different entity. They're a different animal. I think the approach will be similar to last year. And I suppose what I spoke, not to be kind of going on about what I said, but I think they're in a better place in terms of the short ball and that short game. That let us down last year big time, kind of lumping ball down into the Limerick full back line. Our puck-out strategy, if we had one last year, if you remember, we lumped ball down on that half back line and didn't get a lot of fruition out of it. So our puck-out strategy seems to be a little bit better. So I'll be hoping them two factors will bring us a long, long way. There was only a puck of a ball or 2 pucks of a ball in it at the final whistle. But I think we'll have to go all out, lads. I think if you're holding back or if you're kind of making strategies for this Limerick team, you have to play it on your own terms. And I think, they will sit down and they will look at Limerick the way they play. But if you look at another team too much, and maybe that's what Brian Lohan did yesterday, and if you make too many changes in your own way of playing and your own strategy, it'll feed into the opposition, I think, and you're not playing on your own terms. And maybe that's what Brian Lohan did. He said, look, we can't handle Kilkenny up front, we'll put back a sweeper, and I came back to bite him. So I think it'll be 15-15, it'll be all out, but I think we're in a different place in terms of our maturity in possession, not panicking on the ball, and we have a little bit more guile about us, and our bench is a little bit stronger. So I'll be giving us a little bit more of a chance than we did maybe last year, but it'll be a titanic tussle, and they are the kingpins, and they are in finals, and they are so hard to beat. So it'll be interesting.
Just on that as well, Kylie's never lost the final as well. You know, imagine the time to beat him would be going for the 4 in a row. I think this would be number 13, maybe unlucky 13. You never know.
Yeah, look,
could be 4 All-Ireland final losses in a row for Kilkenny, Taggy.
That's it, lads. But like, you talk about losses and you talk about not winning our learns, lads, we have to come up against a great Limerick team. And you talk about maybe that Kilkenny team, Tipperary probably should have more All-Irelands, maybe Cork should have more All-Irelands. But when you come up against a really, really good team and one of the best teams of all time, you're going to lose out and win All-Irelands, and that's just a factor. You know?
Here's a good one, Taggy. Peter Gowan says, Kilkenny want a bad, rainy, windy day with the grass high, no triangles or tippy-tappy tactics. The Kilkenny spirit will come true. A real miserable day like 99.
God almighty, we'll have to bring back a few players then as well, a few Mullickers, a few Hendersons and a few Delaney's. We'll have to throw them in as well then.
Taggy, brilliant stuff. Really appreciate you joining us, and enjoy the win.
Thanks, lads. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Taggy. Come on.
Yeah, great stuff. There's a lot of comments slating the referees over the weekends, James Owens and Colm Lyons. Now, I'm not saying it's an easy job, and you know what? I think as the game goes on, like, referees are human as well. If players are getting tired, of course the referees are going to get tired. Most of them are 10, 15, maybe 20 years older than the players. They have a lot of responsibilities. They have people jawing in their ears. They're, looking around for flags, for signals, for everything. I find it hard to blame them actually in some ways, but obviously it's very frustrating in other ways when they do get things wrong.
Yeah, I think Colin Lyons actually played the advantage really well yesterday, but then for the Mark Rogers goal in inverted commas, the advantage obviously stopped. But I actually think it was fair enough that it stopped, because advantage always stays going. Just say, Shane, you're in possession and you're fouled and you still have possession and you give it to a teammate, then it's still advantage. And he gives it to another teammate and it's nearly still advantage under the referee's interpretation. But if a defender gets in and touches the ball, it's almost like, well, that's what it seems like anyways, like the play is over. So it's like once Hugh Lawler touched the ball yesterday, Colin Lyons' whistle blew immediately after he touched the ball. And Rogers,
But did it blow immediately after, like, because John Conlon had the ball and I don't think the whistle had gone by the time that Tom Phelan buried it.
Oh no! Listen, that was a mad one, really, because it's almost like
so it wasn't consistent then. So yeah, therefore, Clare got the dirty end of the stick.
Well, the move was over. I'll put it to you that way. When Conlon touched the ball, the move was over. Tom Phelan dunted him, which probably still should have been a yellow card, regardless of whether the move was over. But it's almost like Colin Lyons stopped the move once Hugh Lawler touched the ball. Interesting. I was chatting boys that were doing ratings on the game. Like, would you take anything off Hugh Lawler, his rating or how he played for that incident, given that it had no effect on the game? I wouldn't personally.
No, he couldn't. But like, how quickly did the whistle go after Lawler touched it versus how quickly did the whistle go after John Conlon touched it?
Not sure of that. No, not sure of that. Yeah.
Yeah, because to me, the whistle didn't go instantly for once John Conlon got it. And like the ball broke so quickly and it's up to the referee's discretion as well when he wants to decide to blow the whistle, because it's not like there's a 5-second rule or anything. I mean, broadly speaking, there's play on, and we're all kind of, much like every rule in the GA, you're kind of like, it's up to the interpretation of the referee. There's no real solid rules here. Like, there's no solid rule on tackling in the GA. I mean, like, hooking is probably a foul if you're to be technical about it.
No, it is, yeah. It is.
Yeah, so, I mean, the whole thing is, you know yourself, but nobody really knows at the same time. I think Clare got badly done there. I predicted beforehand that Kilkenny would win this game. So it's not like I'm just trying to talk down Kilkenny for the sake of it here. And I actually think they did brilliantly to take control of the game again after Shane O'Donnell got that equalising goal late on. And obviously, they had to, kind of sail pretty close to the win to get over the line. But I think they did brilliantly. But I think the referee, he probably didn't do Clare any favours there. I don't think he has anything against the team, no more than I think James Owens has anything against Galway per se either. But I do think that one definitely went in Kilkenny's favour.
There was a couple of decisions as well. At the time, Tony Kelly, there was a free blown against him. One of the lads mentioned earlier for the Mikey Butler one. I didn't see a free in that.
No.
And when you're tick over something like that being given against you that you think is a total injustice, it's very hard not to say something. It was brought up to 13 yards. That 13 yards probably gave TJ the chance to actually score it, whereas you wouldn't have from the original free. That was obviously a difference maker as well. On the balance of it, I'd say Clare would probably feel a little bit harsh done by. But then, much like the Munster final with the decision at the end, they shot themselves in the foot in other ways. And playing the sweeper in the first half, to me, that was a bit mind-boggling now, being honest with you.
Shane McAvoy makes a good point here. He said, how's it an advantage when Lawler drops it? Like, if Lawler catches that and he doesn't come back for the free, they're giving out about that then. Okay, there was another thing I wanted to mention. We talked about the sort of composure that you might have as a manager on the line if you're getting pretty upset at Nicky Quaid, for example, slowing up the game. And obviously Henry Shefflin got a little bit upset on the line. Is Tony Kelly doing himself or his team any favours when he's getting so animated? And I totally agree that he felt like there was a miscarriage of justice when a free was blown against him when he turned around and Mikey Butler, went over or whatever. I don't think Butler dropped to the floor. I just think he ended up, just with the collision, he ended up falling over. But like, he got very upset. The free was moved up and therefore TJ ended up scoring a long range free. But like, that wasn't the only time that he got animated. Is he doing himself any favours? Is he showing Mikey Butler that, look, my head isn't where it's at really today? I definitely think that hands the advantage a little bit to the opposition. Do it once maybe, but a couple of times, I think you're showing the opposition you're rattled.
Yeah, if you've been there, I've been there. If you're marking a fella and he's frustrated like that and he's talking or whatever, that's not generally forwards don't talk. I find they just get the ball and try and rattle it or whatever. They're not usually back chatting or anything like that, and it's usually a sign that they're out of their comfort zone. Like Tony Kelly and Peter Duggan were on top of Colin Lyons after that ball went in that Lawler dropped. They were literally in on top of him. We haven't mentioned Peter Duggan as well. I thought he was brilliant yesterday, particularly when that was his best game for Clare, I would say, in a long, long time. And when they needed an out ball, it looked like every ball that went down on him, he was going to win. He was a real nuisance.
Break at a minimum.
Yeah, he was a nuisance in the best sense of the word. Even when Hugh Lawler went down to pick a ball on the 13 in the first half, and Duggan was just in around him, arms and legs, forced him out over the line. I think Roger scored the result in 65. Yeah, I thought he was back to himself. Even when he got the early score, you're thinking he's on it today, and he was on it. And yeah, as I said, Duggan would have been the hero had Eoin Murphy not pulled off that incredible save, because definitely was his best game in the Clare shirt for a long, long time.
Is there any angle of this we haven't covered?
I think most things are covered. We just mentioned about Hugh Lawler there. Amazing point he got in the first half for a fullback coming up off the left hand side. I thought David McInerney, who carried a knock into the game, had an outstanding second half, and I thought he used the ball well as well. He didn't drive aimless ball. Just think Clare will have a lot of regrets. Yes, a couple of decisions didn't go their way, but they shot themselves in the foot a tad as well. And it'll be a hard one to look back on. Lohan has 4 years done now. They've beaten in 2 Munster finals, beaten in 2 absolute epics, beaten in 2 All-Ireland semi-finals, beaten by 3 this year, hammered last year. I'd imagine
say it's their best in either.
There's been some funny calls, I would say. To the best of my knowledge, he's another year when his contract was extended, so he'll go into a 5th year. But time is running out a small bit too. Do you know what I mean? And it will be, as Taggy mentioned there, with the Croke Park factor. They haven't won a game in Croke Park, a championship game in Croke Park, since the 2013 All-Ireland semi-final or All-Ireland final replay. And it hasn't been a particularly happy hunter ground, you'd have to say.
I don't think that there would be any mood within Clare to get rid of him. Obviously, some people are going to be frustrated, and empty vessels make the most noise is generally what you hear. Like, there's justified frustration in some of these decisions, but broadly speaking, it seems to be like big support for him in the county. So I can't imagine that there's a mood to get rid of him. Like, Colm Collins just finished up after 10 years with Clare, so I don't think it would bother the county board too much having one man in the position for a long period of time. But there is kind of a feeling that with Tony Kelly probably not too far from the age of 30, John Conlon probably 32 or 33, Shane O'Donnell's been on the road for 10 years. He's still absolutely class, but he must be late 20s at this stage. They probably do need to get something done here at this stage. Losing Ryan Taylor to injury in the first half, like, obviously they were better in the second half anyway, but how much better would he have been in the second half if they were playing, more players further up the field and they weren't adopting the sweeper and so on? Things went against them at the same time, and Aidan McCarthy wasn't available to play, but every team is carrying injuries. If we're to go back to the other game, what did you make of the fact that Galway just go through the team, right? And I'm looking at the forwards here, and Evan Nyland, he didn't score from play. Brian Kincannon and Conor Whelan, they both got their 3 points each from play, but went very quiet after half time, as did Cathal Mannion, who got 1-1 and then very quiet. Ronan Glennon didn't really impact the game. Keenan Fahey was very good against Tip, didn't really impact it. Evan Nyland, people are going to slate him as a glorified free taker if he doesn't start taking over these games or start making a real impact. There was a period in the second half where he tried to take on the Limerick defence, fair play to him, but he just got turned back and dispossessed. And, they need more out of him. They need him to kind of step up as a leader, and some of these other lads too. And when you know that some lads are probably entering the last year or two, Grode McInerney, Joseph Cooney, who's still very good, you just wonder where this Galway team is going. Not that there's not bad hurlers there, and a couple of lads have established themselves, Keenan Fahey, Sean Linan and so on, but it does kind of feel like rather than building towards something, they kind of might be missing out on their last chance or two to squeeze something out of this team.
Yeah, you go down through the spine, you're looking at Dottie Burke, Rod McInerney, Pádraig Mannion, Joseph Cooney. They're all either late 20s or early 30s. Time is of essence, you'd have to say. It's just, even Cathal Mannion's obviously late 20s as well, but a lot of their big players just went out of the game when they kind of needed it most, and the squeeze was put on them. I think Cathal Mannion touched the ball twice in the second half. Conor Whelan got on the ball very, very little as well. They weren't able to get him on the ball. In the first half, it was kind of like, just get the ball in anyway into him, and the ball was getting in and there was bits of space, but they literally could not break down the wall in the second half. And tactically, you'd have to wonder why they kept going long down on top of the Limerick half back line. Like, it was ball after ball after ball after ball.
I think it's panic on the field under pressure.
Yeah, like, but like they had the three lads standing in the full back line looking for the puck out. Now, that's not to say they all wanted the ball or anything like that, but like the idea of hitting the ball to the full back and the ball going back to the goalie and it'd been trucked an extra 6 or 7 yards on the puck out, like that's not going short. I just thought they maybe needed to be a bit bolder when they weren't winning that under half forward line. No point saying any different. They had 3 men loose in the full back line. Try and work, you know, a 1-2, a bit of an overlap, get the ball to the 45, give yourself a chance to get a ball inside, give yourself a chance to work it to somebody in the middle of the field. They didn't do that. And it's almost like, I don't know what you thought. You were in there. I was just looking at it on the box and you're like, how are they hitting another puck out down here? Why aren't they trying something different? Why are they still looking at this? Like, and the longer the second half went on, the worse it got. It's just mad to think that nothing changed from a puck out point of view. You kind of feel sorry for Aidan Murphy in one sense, because didn't look like there was anywhere else for him to put the ball, or nobody else seemed to want the ball. But it was strange. The longer it went on, the further Limerick went clear.
Yeah, you'd think that they'd look to work the ball around. Like, if Limerick have withdrawn, that they'd look to think, okay, well, where do we have the numerical advantage, and work the ball out from the back, draw a man, pop it over his shoulder, that sort of stuff, and hope that doing that will draw Limerick up the field a little bit, so that then when you go along with the next ball, that it's a bit more impactful, rather than just, here's the long ball, Limerick, you'll never believe where this is going, on top of your 6'5" on average half backline. So, and we all kind of sensed during the warm-up that Hegarty was going to be in the half-forward line, because he was warming up with some of the other half-forwards, and you could see Will O'Donoghue warming up with the half-back. So that was the secret was out, I suppose, at that stage. But do you feel that all those changes work? We're talking about, you know, Lohan and what he did with the team and so on. Actually, there's a comment here from Pau saying, it took the greatest save of all time to stop Clare making the final. Stop writing Lohan off, lads. Deserves another year. I don't think we wrote him off, but we did question some of the decisions. But I wouldn't say that everything that John Kiley did worked either. Like, Will O'Donoghue, like, I don't know if he was perfectly suited to centre back in this game. I don't know if they got everything they wanted out of David Reid when he was in midfield, or Cian Lynch when he was in midfield at different stages. Now, ultimately, Galway hit a wall in this game, whether it's energy, mentality, whatever. And, you know, Limerick stepped up and did what they've been doing for years. And I think they're psychologically 5 points up on a lot of teams. And if they get ahead, teams dropped ahead. But I don't think that Limerick got everything right here either. So, you know, it wasn't perfection.
No, well, if you're looking at half an hour in, you're thinking, putting Will O'Donoghue centre back, you'd have to question, were they robbing Peter to pay Paul a bit, and was their midfield really suffering, and were Galway making hay in around that sector because he wasn't there? But, you know, they seem to hold their ground an awful lot more. They seem to stop following, maybe even around half an hour in. Maybe after Quaid went down, the message was, get in, that we're going to hold our shape here. We're not like...
They were trying to anyway. They genuinely were. I was looking in and I was like, right, this isn't working. By the way, sorry, I know I'm cutting you off mid-flow, but what Aidan Murphy was doing with his puck outs throughout the game, but especially in the first half, he was disguising where he was hitting it until the last second. It was almost like he'd twist the wrists as he was sort of building up to strike it. I thought it was really, really impressive. The amount of times he found lads totally on their own as Limerick were trying to hold their shape was really impressive. I don't know if you saw it. There was a video going around from when they played Kilkenny in Nolan Park this year, and Aidan Murphy standing to the right side of the post, down the O'Loughlin's end, and he's looking to the right side, and he flicks a ball 50 yards to the opposite side, and like a no-look pass, and that's obviously the ability he has, and it's just nearly a pity. And he's much maligned over the years, isn't he? Yeah, but it's a pity that was wasted on trucking ball down on top of the half-forward line. Like, there had to be options. Maybe it was a lack of energy, or, you know, that their game was ran by the midway through the second half, but it's just disappointing that they kept doing the same thing over and over again. Like, straight out, like, do you think Henry Shefflin will be in charge of Galway next year? I think he could. I do. Do you? I think he cut quite a frustrated figure on the line. I think he cut quite a frustrated figure after. Just reading between the lines, just my own kind of thoughts on it. I thought he was bigging Limerick up after, more than an opposition manager normally would, and talking about how good Gillan was and how good Seamus Flanagan was and how good Darragh Donovan was and this type of thing. And
I thought that was peculiar from, an opposition manager who'd just been beaten in a game. And I know Limerick are the standard bearers and they're a great team and all that. But yeah, I would have been disappointed with really disappointed with that second half. And as I said, time is of essence for this Galway team, and they didn't seize the day when they created a fair opportunity for themselves.
And let's say he did leave the post, whether he was asked or whether he decided to himself, who necessarily would Galway go for next year? Because Micheál Donoghue has just completed 1 year with Dublin, so I can't imagine he'd go back. Obviously, what comes to mind for me is Matty Kenny, because of course he's a Galway man and he'd always be fresh in the mind because he was my manager. But I don't know, would there be a load of options?
No, there's not a hell of a lot of options, and I think that comes into the equation as well when you're thinking of managers. Like, it's one thing saying we need change. If the change is not better than what's there, then I don't think you change. So it'll be interesting, but it's going to be fascinating to see what happens over the coming months. There's obviously big travel involved in it as well. And
yeah,
maybe he'll feel like that he's not got the bounce out of them that he hoped he would. I think they only won a Walsh Cup in the 2 years that he was there. They were really disappointing Leinster final performance last year. They had the Leinster final in their grasp this year. If they had a title under the belt, maybe it would be different. But we'll be following that one fairly closely over the coming weeks and months.
Where do Galway train? Is it Athenry or is it somewhere else?
I think the footballers train somewhere. They train in different places, but I think it would be mostly Athenry, but I could stand corrected on that.
Ballyhale is 2.5 hours from Athenry.
It's colossal. It's a colossal spin. It's a colossal spin that has massive ramifications on other parts of your life as well, and your work obviously too.
Yeah, like Henry Shefflin did brilliantly with that Ballyhale Shamrocks team, and they won a couple of All-Irelands. Really, really impressive. But since then, and that was a team that has obviously unbelievable generational players. Since then, he's had a couple of seasons with Thomastown, and they probably would have been expecting to get promoted, but they couldn't get their semi-final and a final loss. And now a couple of seasons with Galway, where if you were to look at the positives of it, they beat Cork with an unimpressive performance last year to win a quarter-final. This year, beat Tipperary, won by, performed better, probably should have won by 10, ended up winning by 2. And no show for 45 minutes of this semi-final. Last year's semi-final, really good performance against Galway, and you can't blame him for, just at the end, they probably didn't have the composure to get over the line, or maybe just Limerick are too good. So, I don't know, there's probably some question marks there as well.
There is. No, I think there is, and it's as Jim Gavin had said, there's going to be some honest and frank discussions in the off season, I'm sure. Just a word, because I haven't really mentioned him. I just thought Dan Morrissey was brilliant the other night. When there was 50-50 duels or even 40-60 duels to be won with Conor Whelan at different stages, I just think he's not the flashiest player in the world, but he generally just always delivers a 7.5, 8 out of 10. He's just so consistent. And his battle, potentially he might pick up Owen Cody in the final. Maybe it'd be interesting. He could pick up TJ. Those battles, we'll get into them in a couple of weeks. But I just thought he was outstanding the other night.
Yeah, Crackety Ash says Tip would sell their own grannies for a player like David Reid. He's been proper good since getting more game time. Would have a bag of All-Stars if he had more time up to now. Isn't it mad to think that he was playing for Kildare a few years ago?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's absolutely mad. It's funny you mentioned the All-Stars there. I think Conor Whelan is Galway's only All-Star after the other night, and people would say, that he was quiet in the second half. He was, but I think he has enough kind of credit in the bank up until that point. I don't think Clare are going to win too many All-Stars either, and I personally I don't think Tony Kelly is going to win an All-Star this year, despite the 3-4 against Dublin in the quarter-final. But that's probably a debate for another day.
Yeah, actually, during the second half, I was looking at the way Galway were up front, and the problem was they weren't getting the ball in the way they had in the first half, and a lot of the talk was how, I suppose, Limerick sat back or whatever, but to my money, they tried to do that throughout the game anyway, and I just bring this up on screen. I hope it's displayed properly here, but this was in the second half, and you can see here, there's a couple of Galway lads here that are on the 6-yard line and the end line. I'm not entirely sure who the two players are, but look at that space. They're the only two players inside the 45. And you can see Limerick's half back line is trying to hold there about 55 yards out. This was the case several times in the second half, but they just could not or did not get the ball in. And a few times players, and I don't want to be too critical, but Tom Monaghan, when he gets the ball, he's looking to see, can I get my shot off even in traffic, rather than looking to see, can I pop it in? And that was something that Galway did brilliantly in the first half. When a player got in midfield, at times they'd turn and strike it in without even looking.
Yeah.
And that did not happen in the second half. And the picture that I just showed, I'll bring it up just one more time. This picture was there several times and the ball was not delivered. Maybe players were tired, maybe whatever excuse you like to throw in there.
More pressure on the man in possession, less time to deliver. Like they definitely had more time in the first half.
But at times they didn't even take time. As soon as they got the ball, they struck blindly, and it worked. And that was obviously the plan. But in the second half, they weren't delivering it the several times that there was a 1-on-1 or a 2v2 inside the 45.
Yeah, that's a killer, particularly if you're standing inside. You just, like, Conor Whelan was in the type of form this year, and even at times the other day, that just get the ball in. It doesn't matter. As Joe Bergen used to say with Offaly, just leave it in good and ignorant. Just get it in. Get it in. And if it's in here, we have a chance of winning. If it's in here, we have a chance of scoring. If it's not in here, we've no chance. And sometimes, yeah, they were probably dilly-dallying out the field, and a lot of the time they were swallowed up then as well.
Dilly-dallying, that's a great one. Brian McNamara adds, lads, do you think that Limerick's first 25 minutes was a combination of Will O'Donoghue getting settled in as well as a 4-week break? Once they got going, they clicked and blew Galway away. More Limerick than Galway. So that is a fair point, yeah.
I thought it was more Galway than Limerick now, I have to say. I thought Galway really brought it in that first 25 minutes. Really brought it.
Well, they brought it, but how do you explain some of those really poor Limerick wides early in the game? Like, we're talking about uncontested wides from 45 yards, we'll say, from the likes of Limerick.
Yeah, they were there in the second half as well. Tom Morrissey had two really uncharacteristic wides within 30 seconds from two sharp puckouts. Do you remember that?
Just before he was taken off. I'd say maybe they decided he was gassed. Maybe that's why they took him off. But yeah, maybe that was two puckouts turned over very easily.
That would have put another nail into the Galway coffin maybe a bit earlier than it was actually put in.
Would you think Mikey Butler will be on Peter Casey the next day? Follow him around the pitch?
Well, it would suit Butler, wouldn't it? Because, like, I don't even know if people in O'Loughlin thought he had the attacking part in his arsenal. Like, he bounced the ball off the ground yesterday at one stage.
The finish after it wasn't so glorious.
No, it wasn't. He probably had as much of an impact on the Kilkenny scoreboard as Tony Kelly had on the Clare scoreboard, realistically. Didn't he win a free or two? I think he might have won 2 frees, I think.
What did you make of Tony Kelly's performance overall? Like, to me, moving out to midfield was almost like, whether it was Lohan's decision or his own, I was more like, no, do you know what? Get close to goal here now. Get to where, if you get your hands on the ball, you're turning and striking. I thought it was moving further away from goal just suited Kilkenny more and more.
I suppose they probably played him out there because they knew they were playing a sweeper, and they were going thought they were going to try and hurt Kilkenny from distance. There wasn't much.
But I thought in the second half, like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, I would have had him in around there. Would have had probably him and O'Donnell even in at different stages. He, from what I could see, he never really ventured past the half hour line at any stage, and was predominantly out around the middle of the pitch. And in fairness, it was kind of like Philly McMahon on the Gooch that time. Like, he's a man marker and you're supposed to stop the forward. But Mikey Butler obviously was told or got it into his head that I'm going to try and put this lad on the back foot. And he dusted him at one stage actually going forward, which very few of us would have predicted probably beforehand.
James Daly said, and I presume this is a Limerick man, Clare won their All-Ireland in April when they beat us by a point. Eoin Murphy saved the best ever. Savage 45 minutes from us Saturday night. Going to be an unreal final, lads. Yeah, really will be. P-Well74 says, Limerick played with Dan Morrissey one-on-one in 50 yards of space, but Galway were unable to get it in, and when they did, Dan won it. And I think sometimes, actually, when they did get a ball to play in, they just didn't hit the nice sort of ball that really favoured the forward, where it was like 10 yards in front of him on his outside. There's a couple of times where it hung a little bit too long, and Morrissey, who's an excellent defender and is able to judge the game really well, was able to get his body, you know, in a position to nudge the man a little bit. And a couple of times he won the ball against the head when he had no right to. So there's a little bit of both of that going on. But, like, you can't, like, how do you explain Galway going from being on the front foot, getting the ball in space, to just fading away? It's multifactorial, really, isn't it?
There's a lot in it. I do think a lot of it is to do with morale. Even if they've gone in 3 or 4 up at half time, you must, like, you'd feel very deflated going in at half time, knowing that you're after giving everything. You're after knocking Limerick back. They had them at 6s and 7s for the guts of the first half, and you're going in 1 up. What did Limerick hit? Did Limerick hit 5 at the last? Did they hit 5 in a row, actually? the last points in the first half. They might well have had. Did it go from 113 to 1-7, 113 to 112 at half time? Was it? I think they might have hit the last 5.
They hit 5 of the last 6. Sorry, 6 of the last 7 of the half.
Yeah, like that's
destroying.
That's a killer. It is. There's no point in saying any different. And if you looked even at the body language of the Galway lads going in at half time compared to the Limerick lads, Limerick had their dander up. They were getting a bit of form. Galway lads were kind of heavy-legged, trudging in, maybe knowing deep down that
Will O'Donoghue hitting Henry Shefflin on the shoulder on the way in.
The two Reds.
But I mean, like, if he's seeing, and I don't know if he did and if the two are connected, but if he's seeing Henry Shefflin getting a bit wound up by the Nicky Quaid thing, and then he's like, I'll hit this lad a little mini shoulder on the way in. We saw something between Stephen O'Hanlon and Kieran McGeeney a few weeks ago as well. But, like, obviously that shouldn't be happening, but, you know, gamesmanship and all that, it's kind of cute from Will O'Donoghue.
He's probably maybe trying to get a bit of a rise out of him, maybe.
Exactly, that's what I mean. And make him, because maybe Limerick talked about it beforehand. They'll get too wound up on the line, lads. We won't.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. And, you know, no matter, Galway had Limerick at 6s and 7s, and you just see Connacht there with the piece of paper and Kylie going back sitting down. There is no panic, to be fair to him. Kylie's animated at times, but there's definitely no panic. Whereas from a Galway point of view, you'd have to say, at stages there was panic everywhere. And they were just getting way too emotional about like little decisions here and there. And as you said about the Quaid thing, like Shefflin was going ballistic at the time. You know what I mean? And just what can you do when you say it to the fourth official and make them aware of it and try to make sure it doesn't happen again? But you wasting energy and getting totally out of the game. I'm sure you've been there as well, where something happens in a game and you totally take your mind off a switch you should be making or something that you should be seeing. I think Limerick got it.
I've never missed anything.
I think Clare got a bit lost in the whole second half yesterday. Case in point, the Shannon substitution, which would have came traditionally 10 minutes before it did. I think they got, and Brian Lohan kind of suggested it much after that he'd have to look at the second half back, that was a bit of a whirlwind that they may have got lost in.
The Shanahan one just beggars belief, because they were at times left with two smaller men inside and nothing but Kilkenny giants around. And Shanahan's probably the one man, I mean, yes, Peter Duggan, you know, TJ Reid, but God, above all, like, you don't mind hitting it in front of, like, there could be 3 men up against him and you think, he's got a bit of a chance here. You know, it's not exactly a snowball's chance in hell here. Keenan to ref the final, lads, what do you think? Yeah, don't even need to give him a whistle. Just have a hooter to start it in the halves.
I tell you what, Andrew Sullivan said this to me and he was 100% right. I hope to God John Keenan gets it. I think he deserves it. Also, it will be his last inter-county game ever, so he can do whatever he wants.
Oh, does he pass the age bracket at that stage?
He passed the age bracket. Him and Paul Dwyer both passed the age bracket this year. So they're probably the two that are probably most in the running. But I think Keenan has leaned a bit towards what Croke Park want him to do a bit more this year. Probably with the view to hopefully getting a final. He obviously hasn't refed one yet. And it would be, I'd be disappointed if his career finished without one. So, yeah, I'm hoping John Keenan gets it.
How long do you give Cahill and Shefflin to get it right? And Joe LK20 says, were Henry Shefflin's expectations too high? Has he come to inter-county too soon in his career? Just a thought. Well, he had 4 years of club management done. At this day, he would have been, 42 or early 43 when he took the job. So, no, I don't necessarily think. I mean, how long does your sort of, I don't know, understudy or graduation period have to be? What do you think?
Yeah, he's obviously won 2 Club All-Irelands, and you're kind of thinking, unless you go in as coach to a team, or you go in like Donoghue did with Tipperary that time and get all the secrets of the state and bring them off to Galway, unless you do something like that. And obviously he was by all accounts, he was offered to go into the Kilkenny backroom team under Cody and refused, and that's probably a lot of where the beef has materialised. But I think you probably, when you kind of want to, when your form is good and you want to kind of just give inter-county a go, he's done that now. There was a question earlier there, you know, do we ever see Shefflin managing Kilkenny in time? You'd be surprised if he wasn't manager of Kilkenny at some stage in the future. But saying that, you know, if Derek Lyng wins an All-Ireland this year, maybe Derek Lyng's reign will be, you know, it's obviously not going to be a similar length to Cody, but maybe he'll have a a John Kiley-esque kind of reign where it's 6 or 7 seasons. So you just don't know really.
Yeah, I don't know if he will get, like, it's not that he's not good enough to get the job or doesn't have the esteem. He definitely does. But you just wonder, when going to another county, do other people feel quite frustrated? You just don't know. By the way, Nash got a slap off Concannon. Yeah, he probably should have got a red for that, actually. He flicked in across the body of Nash.
Yeah, it was that was a tasty enough one. Now there was some loose enough stuff at different times. Adam Hogan was loose on Cody yesterday now as well.
Yeah.
But listen, I don't mind a bit of looseness from time to time now either, to be honest.
But people will say, "Oh yeah, if this was Hegarty, you'd be slating him or whatever." I mean, I'm saying it should have been a red for flicking across him. So I'd like to think that's relatively consistent.
You think it would have been a red? You think that should have been a red for flicking across?
Well, it was bad enough now because he got him in the stomach with the hurley, so it wasn't ideal.
I know, but
well, maybe an orange card, somewhere in between.
You don't want to see reds. Let's call a spade a spade.
I rarely do. Like Adam Hogan, that's an orange card as well. It's somewhere between a yellow and a red because it's it's loose is the term we tend to use, but it was the far side of loose, really.
Yeah, I don't think it's hatchet loose though. Do you know what I mean?
What do you think of Limerick's throwing during the match? I thought very accurate throwing of the ball.
There was a fair bit of throwing yesterday as well. It's gas. David for sure got pulled for one. It's only when it's blatantly obvious that it's pulled, like blatantly obvious. Listen, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do with that. But it's either going to allow a throw or really, really enforce it. And they went at it in the league somewhat, and I think it might even be last year that they went at it, and then it loosens as the championship goes on. And it's only the really, really, really obvious ones that are pulled now.
Yeah. Joe, we have to give serious credit to a couple of people. Derek Lyng for getting this far in his first season, because there is that whole kind of thought that maybe you take over a job like this, a bit like, you take over from Sean Boylan and Meath, and they still haven't found a successor, and that's 17 years ago or something. You take over from Man United and David Moyes, he's become a punchline almost. And then Brian Cody leaves after such a successful reign, and Derek Lyng comes in and gets him back to a final and has maybe modernised how they play while he's doing it, and maybe kind of matured a couple of players. And some of those he would know, obviously, from last year, being with the under-20s and winning All-Ireland there. But he's done some serious job there in year one. And then Aaron Gillane, I don't think it's just like Aaron Gillane doing Aaron Gillane things. So we almost don't even talk about it. But 2-1 from play, obviously added in 5 frees as well. He's a killer.
He is, yeah. And he's in the form of his life. As someone said to me there recently, what odds would you got on Aaron Gillane being hurler of the year around January, February, when he was a Creve Celtic he was scoring goals for? Do you know what I mean? You would have got fair odds. He's fairly short odds now. And his battle with Hugh Lawler in the final is going to be tasty. Lawler probably got the better of the two of that battle last year, but that's going to be tasty again this year. Now you have a fully fit Peter Casey coming into it. If Keane Lynch getting closer.
Gillane wasn't fully fit last year. Remember, he was kind of bandaged up and stuff.
Yeah, had a bit of a knee kind of a bandage on last year. He still ended up with 3 points, I think, but Hugh probably got the better of that battle. We could talk about the All-Ireland final a bit more in time, but Kilkenny are going to have to really shut down those big Limerick players in the final, which they didn't do last year.
Yeah, I can't wait for this final. I think it's going to be skin and hair flying. And Kilkenny won't be as naive in terms of the puck out and allowing Limerick to do the bunch and break. That's just not going to happen in this final, I don't think.
Imagine they're going to try and hold their ground a bit more.
And drop out, because they were pushed up all the way to the 21, whereas Limerick were more or less out to the 45.
Yeah, I think they'll probably let them have it a bit more now, because Limerick are probably outside of Nash. Yeah, Mike Casey's good on the ball and Dan Morrissey's good on the ball. Probably not as good maybe as Sean Finn on the ball. So, it's amazing the study that's going to go into it. You say you don't want to focus too much on the opposition, but you have to focus a fair bit on Limerick. Either that, or you have to focus on the things that we need to do, and maybe don't focus on Limerick as much, but this is what we need to do. But I'm sure they're going to zone in on certain aspects of Limerick's play and go after it.
Yeah, crack of the ash. Obviously a Limerick man. Only Melts give out about throwing. No,
Melt is a good one now.
It is a good one, but he only wants us to give out about everyone else and just sing Limerick's praises, which we do a lot. Like, we're talking about Aaron Gillane here. So good in the air. he's become a sniper in terms of like when he gets in on goal now, he's putting it underneath the goalkeeper or not giving him a chance. Mark Rogers will probably learn that the hard way after, giving Conor Fogarty an opportunity to block him down. That has to go into the turf. That's something that I think the difference between maybe around 2013 and 14 or whatever, and Seamus Callan became a sniper. He started finishing ball into the ground as well, and that's what the very best players do.
Speaking of snipers, it's funny, Crack of the Ash has been a good man to do a video on Twitter with snipers taking out various Clare players that went down at various stages in this year's championship.
Yeah, they've been very good now. They have been good. Brian McNamara says, Lyng is class and a class act too. Never loses the cool and seems like a sound lad. Pure gent. Clearly hope he loses, but some man, obviously. Kyle Hayes as well. Another great performance.
Brilliant, yeah.
I mean, like...
Shane, the flick point, like, he'd know where to go, and it was just, a lot of louder lads would have thrown it up and tried to get a little left swing on it and probably been hooked. But just, again, we talk about teams panicking and players panicking. Like, that's just coolness and calmness when he's obviously probably, physically pretty fatigued after making a lung busting run. Made a couple of superb catches as well. He was one of the ones, well, Burns as well, probably. They put the shutters up on the half-back line, and Galway just could not find a way through.
And, when he made that burst up the field and scored the point, like his teammates filtered back in to ensure that his position wasn't left vacated. Actually, on Galway's side, what they did was they knew that Limerick were going to try and overload one side and leave one wing free for players to just run across into 50 yards of space. Brian Kincannon was consistently coming out to the left half-back position to ensure that space wasn't there. So obviously, Galway had thought about this too. How do we shut down Limerick? And there's going to be a bit of that cat and mouse stuff in the final. I don't think Brian Cody focused on it as much as he probably should have. Pat Mulhall says here that tactics are destroying hurling. Whether there or aren't, there are going to be a lot of them in the final. I'd say we've nearly every angle covered.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Someone slated me over not getting a haircut because I said I'd get one 2 weeks ago. Lads, I have a lot of things going on now. My hair is leaves me worried at the moment.
Crack of the Ash, have you ever seen footage of Kyle Hayes at club level? It's a total joke.
Didn't he get stupid amount of points from playing the game last year? Was it double figures? I think it might have been, yeah. I think he's an animal, and there was a couple of times the other day where he just got that couple of yards, and if you don't stop him at source, you're in big bother. If those legs start pumping, you're in trouble. You're on the back foot big time.
I don't blame Grode McInerney for what happened in that matchup at all. I think the ball going in was so good. Gallan's movement is unbelievable. And himself and Seamus Flanagan dovetail together really well. They'll often both go the same way, then the two of them check back, and then they'll both check off in different directions. And obviously there's spaces created in front of them because all of those other players, including Peter Casey, generally are further out the field. But I don't think anyone would be able to stop some of that movement that Gallan makes. So I wouldn't blame Grove.
I thought McInerney did well, Shane, because I thought he was under pressure going in at half time. I thought he did solid enough second half, to be fair.
The All-Ireland semi-finals in the Camogie, by the way, we might as well mention, are going to be between Tipperary and Waterford, and you're going to have Cork against Galway in the other one. Now, I was in for both of these Camogie semi-finals over the weekend. The first half, Tipperary weren't that brilliant at all against Antrim, but it was something like 10 points to 5 at half-time then. Tipperary tagged on a few points before half-time, but it was complete annihilation in the second half, and I think Antrim got one further point and Tipperary won, by a huge scoreline, and caught the van. I don't know if you saw her goal. A double finish, absolutely brilliant. She got 2 goals. Emer Heffernan came off the bench and scored 1-3. A lot of different players scored for Tipperary, and it was just a tough day at the office really for Antrim. But that sets up Tipperary for an all-Munster semi-final against Waterford, which I think is, look, let's call a spade a spade. Galway and Cork have been collecting All-Irelands over recent years. For Tipperary to get back there and kind of break through the glass ceiling of winning an All-Ireland semi-final, which hasn't been done in recent years, 3 lost semi-finals, great opportunity. And 2 of the big things are, you've got Karen Kennedy back after a cruciate, and she's just a Rolls Royce of a centre back. And I'm going to name drop a Burris Elite player in Teresa Ryan, who was in Australia for, I think, a year or 2. She's kind of a bit of an enforcer around midfield. So that's been 2 huge kind of boosts to the Tipperary cause.
Tip have to win the semi-final from the point of view of,
Tip being back.
They performed creditably in previous semi-finals, but they came up against, one of the big 3 on each of those 3 occasions. With due respect to Waterford, I think they were in a semi-final last year, where they, for the first time in a long, long time, and I know Beck Carton is playing, some of the best camogie of her career. But this is a glorious opportunity for the two of them, isn't it? There's going to be a new face. It's generally been a monopoly between the big three for the last good while. There's going to be a new face in the final. Some people would say that the Galway Cork semi-final is a de facto final. That's probably been disrespectful to the other two, but whoever wins that will be fairly hot favourites going into the final.
Yeah, look, tip her back. I'm blue in the face saying it, but tip her back. Verney's going to turn into a woolly mammoth once his child starts teething.
God only knows what it'll turn into when that happens.
Yeah, then the other semi-final, which Cork ended up winning by a point. Now, refereeing was a big talk of this game as well. John Dermody was the man in the middle for this one, but Cork were denied 2 cast iron penalties. I mean,
They were very bad.
My God. And it allowed Kilkenny back into the game. You have to give Denise Gall huge credit because she got some brilliant scores. And the way she kind of worked her way through traffic to finish that goal she got was absolutely class. But Katrina Mackey and Amy O'Connor, they'd gotten the goals at the other side. And Kilkenny had a brilliant start. I think they led by 1-4-2 or something like that. And you wondered if Cork can actually settle down here. But they did ultimately, and they should have had those 2 penalties. But then at the very, very end, a Kilkenny forward was running through. Who was it? Was it Katie Power, I think maybe, was running through, clearly pulled back. But the referee didn't blow for that one. And it was a cast iron free from maybe about 45 yards out, and you had to back Denise Gall to nail it all day, every day. But maybe it was a case of, damn it, I haven't given those 2 penalties, probably seen it up on the big screen. And actually, I think during Kilkenny-Clare, there was a contested line ball. I don't know, was it John Donnelly or Mossy Keown and somebody else? I'm pretty sure the referee looked up at the screen. It was clear as day, a clear ball.
Side,
he reversed it, didn't he?
That's right, Hogan stand side. Listen, I don't know. I think it's mad in Croke Park that they won't show anything controversial that could potentially help the referee, and make the game fair. I think that's kind of crazy. But from a Cork point of view, obviously they were beaten in last year's final. That's going to be a cracker, Cork and Galway, and the other one will be a belter of the game as well. But a massive opportunity for the two of them.
Yeah, Limerick Nicholas, have Clare ever lost a tight game and it not been the referee's fault? Same as the Munster final, need to learn to take their medicine. Yeah, there's a lot of skin and hair flying in the comments today, which I enjoy, of course, now, to be fair. We should also mention the All-Ireland Minor Football Championship final. Derry 113, Monaghan 19 points. So in terms of the score in there, Ger Dillon, he got 6 frees for Derry. Conal Higgins scored 3 points. James Sargent got the key goal. Oisin Doherty got 2. And Kerr Spears, he scored a point along with Eamon Young. On the Monaghan side, Matthew Finn scored 4 points. One of those was a free. Max McGinnity scored 3 frees. Donica Connolly and Sean McIlwain, they got a point each. So for Derry, that's a huge win. And 2 of their last 4 All-Ireland Michael, they've made it 2 out of the last 4 All-Ireland minors. So this Derry thing, it's not going to slow down anytime soon.
No, it doesn't look like it. Looks like they have a fair conveyor belt coming through, which is great because Shane McGuigan's not old, Conor Glass is not old. A lot of those Derry boys are of a good age. Chrissy McKaig is probably one of the elder statesmen, but you'd imagine they'd be able to filter a few of them through over the next, 4 to 5 years, maybe into a senior setup that, who knows, may have won an All-Ireland by then. You never know.
Yeah, and I think that was the 3rd time that Derry beat Monaghan this year, which is no mean feat as well, because anyone trying to do that's a tough job. Gerard O'Dwyer, Limerick and the Dark Arts. I take it you mean that the time immemorial of craft of winning pertinent to all great sporting teams. Yeah, but the great teams know when to do the little dark arts. They know when to stop up play. They know when to do a tactical foul. They know when, just to do those things that get you over the line. Anyway, any means necessary.
And the dark arts have changed over time. The dark arts 20, 30 years ago were different than they are now. So you just have to adapt to rule changes and different things, and you find your way around it. Like the Nicky Quaid one, the only way to get around that is make a defender puck out the ball, make him step out, make a defender step in goals. Bang! It will not happen again. I guarantee it. He's not going to stand in the end off the pitch. Make someone else, and that's the brilliance of it in a way, and the cuteness of it. They know that the play will not start or cannot start because he has to take the puck out. So the only way around it is, okay, you're going off for a minute, Nicky. In my case, you're taking the puck out. Boom! Nicky Quaid's back on the pitch. It's all stopped.
Yeah, when I was playing that league game for Coola there last week, my helmet came off in contact, and I'd say it was half off, and maybe I just knocked it fully off. Then I can't entirely remember, but I was waiting for the referee to stop the play. I was like, I was trying to be cute about getting to stop the play, and he didn't. And then I was like, you know what? I'll run over to the play, and then he'll have to stop it. But he actually gave a free against me because he said you took off the helmet. And I said, no, I didn't. I was like, why would I do that? And then he was like, you're not supposed to go over and contest the play. Then you have to sort of stay out of the play if you don't have your helmet on. So, and like in one of the semi-finals, was it John Donnelly who tried to get the game stopped by keeping his helmet off or looking for treatment? And the referee said, just poke it out anyway.
Kyle Hayes did it on Saturday as well. He had his helmet off at one stage, and the referee just said he didn't even have the helmet back on, and he was actually running. The puck out was coming, and Hayes was running with putting his helmet back on. So the referee, not saying he wasn't buying it, because I don't know if Hayes was actually trying to do anything there, but the referee was just said, not today, and just played on.
Yeah. Monaghan got 9 points, Shane. Did I not say that?
I can't remember, but it's coming towards that time of the week where we have to pick our greatest of all time. The GOAT of the week.
GOAT of the week. Owen Cody.
Owen Cody, I'm going to give it to Dan Morrissey. I think he's kind of underappreciated, and I just thought when there was some key balls to be won the other night, I thought he was superb. Going to be in directing again for an All-Star, I'd say, this year. I thought he was man of the match on Saturday night, being honest with you.
He's brilliant. He really is brilliant. He's the sort of player that every team in Ireland... And do you remember a couple of years ago when they were going to be rejigging the defence, and of course you had Sean Finn and Mike Casey flying it, and you have Kyle Hayes coming from the forwards to the backs, and you're nearly thinking, who's going to drop out of the team? And I'd say a lot of people expected maybe it would be Dan Morrissey because, maybe he's not as silky as some of the other guys, but there's just no way you leave him on the bench.
Too consistent, just too reliable. You know what you're going to get every day of the week.
Should Eoin Murphy be GOAT of the week?
I think we've given him enough credit already.
Yeah, and we've given him plenty of credit over the year as well. I forgot to bring up the goat head. That's probably the first time I've ever forgotten to do it. But let's get it up there and say once more, I'm going to give Owen Cody the GOAT of the week.
Dan Morrissey for me, yeah. Dan Morrissey. Okay. Defenders don't get it half enough.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it from the show this week. We've covered some amount. We remind you we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame and you'll get 15% off. A reminder, if you want to run a club fundraiser, you can go to email events@ourgame.ie. That's the place to contact us. Also the same if you want to do a coaching clinic. So that's it from the show this week. Keep the comments coming. We love when we get the comments in. We'll discuss them more later in the week when we're back with our next show. That's it. And if you want to get the audio podcast, patreon.com/OurGame.